Welcome to the Wisconsin Wrestler Podcast with your co-hosts Deke Fenwick and Steve Lurkwood.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wisconsin Wrestler Podcast. I'm your host, Deke Fenwick, coming to you, not live from Holmen, coming to you from Holmen. Joining me, as always, from Koshkonong, my co-host, Steve Lurkwin. Steve, great to be here.
Pumped to be here, Teague. 2 weeks off, and this is officially our first episode of season number 7, correct?
Season 7 of the Steve era. Season 8, I think, if you include the BS era.
The BS.
Before
yes.
Steve.
Full of BS. You know, it's funny you said from Koshkonong. I was reffing at Youth State this weekend. I'm sorry, Youth Regionals this weekend. And I had 3 different people come up to me and say, "Hey, Steve from Koshkonong." So it's starting to stick. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. But Teague, we've had 2 weeks off, and I'm pumped to be back. Excited for this show. Excited to get this series going.
Yeah, of course, we kick off our new season, with 4-timer interviews, state champ coaching interviews, and we have a fun one tonight. We had him on the show before, so not just a team state champ coach now, but probably more pumped that he's a recurring guest on the Wisconsin Wrestler Podcast.
Absolutely.
And I just above all that, just an all-around great dude. So I always look forward to chatting with him. Folks know who it is by now at this point. I'm talking about none other than the 3-time AWISA state champ who went on to wrestle at North Dakota State and then played football and wrestled at UWL.
That's
now
huge.
a team state champ coach for the Aquinas Blue Golds, who he has coached for 18 years. Talk about none other than Mr. Deke Stanek. Deke, glad to have you back on.
Yeah. Hey, thanks guys for having me on. I appreciate the coverage.
And Deke, you know I love you because as much as it kind of itches my skin to wear this, I am repping my blue gold gear tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know you're a Holman guy through and through, but I appreciate the one-time wear here. So.
Yeah, you know, don't tell the Holman people this, but it is a pretty comfy sweatshirt.
It is. I was just telling Deke off air is that is like one of my favorite sweatshirts. I wear it all the time, and right before the podcast, I couldn't find it. So, Teague, I went with
no shirt. Oh, Garing's Meat Market.
Garing's Meat Market. This episode brought to you by.
Somehow slipped that reference in there. Love it. I'll say this. I come in for every Holman Aquinas duel. I have a Holman wrestling shirt that I wear. But I do wear my Aquinas socks underneath. So it's a true neutral.
Perfect.
Deke, we have a lot to talk about tonight. The last time we had you on was the sectional preview series, and there's always a lot to unpack with that. But since this is your first time on in the quote-unquote off-season, get a little more time to chat, and whenever we have our team state champ coaches on for the first time, we get to hear about their wrestling story. So from day one, when you first put shoes on, let's get the wrestling story of Mr. Deke Stanek.
So you want me to start way back when, like youth wrestling?
You can, yeah.
You were born at a young age. The night was dark. You usually are.
Yeah. So got started here in youth wrestling and lacrosse back when I was about 5 years old. So there were no clubs at that time. The only show in town where you could wrestle was the Lacrosse Boys and Girls Club, and they had a Lacrosse Boys and Girls Club Southside that was hosted at Central, and then they had a Lacrosse Boys and Girls Club Northside, which I think was hosted at Logan High School. So I was part of the Southside club, and we practiced, I think, 2 or 3 days a week. And it was at Central High School in this really tiny little old wrestling room that they had. And I'm going to drop some names here that the young guys aren't going to recognize, but I remember like waiting out in the hallway to start practice, and out of the Central room would come Eric Jaton, who was a 4-time state finalist, 2-time champ for Central. He ended up being a 3-time All-American for the Badgers. Chris Barr would walk out, and he was a state champ for Central. He went on to wrestle at Northern Iowa. Brian Colburn, he might be one of the most electric wrestlers I've ever watched wrestle. I think he was a 2-time state runner-up, never won it all, but another great wrestler. So those guys were like my heroes when I was a little kid, and really looked up to those guys, and wrestled for the Lacrosse Boys and Girls Club all through our youth. I was not good at all. I was actually, I would say I was pretty bad when I started.
Quick question, Deke. Is that the father of Devin Barr?
It is not. I think he is a relation to like Devin's dad, but I don't know that, they're real closely related. There's a ton of bars up on the ridge here outside Lacrosse, and I think they're, distantly related. So good question. Yeah,
okay, bunch of bars, and we're not talking about the ones with refreshments. We're talking about the wrestling family.
Yeah.
All right, so continue. Yeah. We left off. You were not good at wrestling at this juncture in your career.
Yeah. So when I was young, I remember going to my first tournament, getting beat up, and like wanting to quit. Like telling my dad I hated wrestling, didn't want to wrestle anymore, and he made me stick it out. And I'm obviously glad he did. Tried qualifying for U State many times, never did. And then freshman year, so I was went to Aquinas Middle School, then went to Aquinas High School. Was really blessed with some really great teammates and great coaches there. My head coach was John Wissing, who was a teacher at the high school, and then his head assistant was Tony Liga, who was the coach at Central for many years, and I actually coached Eric Chaton and those guys during that time period, and kind of came, I would say, into my own probably my sophomore year. I spent a lot of time in the off season between freshman and sophomore year, wrestling at camps. There still wasn't really any clubs in the area. I was blessed that my dad was pretty good friends with Greg Lonning, who was the head coach at the time at UW-Lacrosse. So in the spring, once my freshman season was over, I would just walk from Aquinas over to UWL, and the college guys would just beat me up. And there would always be a few other high school kids that would go and practice there. John Lorenz, who was the state champ for Logan, Zach Leclerc, state champ for Logan, he would be there. A few guys from Caledonia, Minnesota would come down, and we'd train together. And was blessed to be able to, basically practice with the college guys for 3 springs through my senior year. Did okay in high school, made it to Fargo my senior year, went 1-2 out there. Didn't have a great tournament, but NDSU recruited me after I had won Northern Plains. Went out there and spent my first 2.5 years out there, and I loved it. Like, NDSU is a great school. I had great coaches, awesome teammates. And when I was out there, they had a really good football team. And in the summer months, because of I worked at Fleet Farm in the summer out there, because of when I got off, I would end up training with the football guys in the afternoon. And I just always remember thinking I still had a kind of a passion for football, and wanted to do both. Approached the head coach at the time at NDSU, whose name was Bucky Maughan. He's a Hall of Fame coach, has since passed, but because I was on scholarship out there, they couldn't let me play football. So transferred back to UWL, and wrestled and played football for my last 2.5 years there. So I don't know if you guys saw, I have a unique, I think, story. I was a part-time starter at NDSU for a little while when the starting heavyweight got dinged up a little bit, and kind of same thing at UWL. I had a couple starts, but was never like the full-time guy. I was behind 3 different national champions at NDSU. Nick Severson was a 2-time D2 national champ when I was there. And then right when I transferred back to UWL, Jason Ott was in his final semester. So obviously sat behind him. And then there was this little 197-pound freshman who I didn't even know who he was. And turns out he ends up being a 4-time national finalist and 3-time champ, has since been inducted, and very deservingly so, into the D3 Hall of Fame, UWL Hall of Fame, all those things. Ryan Allen, obviously a coach at Iowa Grant. I consider him a great friend. He's one of the funniest guys I know, and I love seeing him at wrestling tournaments. I honestly hate coaching against him.
Right.
Not it's because I have a ton of respect for him, and somebody's got to lose, and I hate that it's going to be one of us. So
how'd you handle that, Deke? I mean, obviously when Ott left, who was a stud, right? Were you kind of like, hey, it's my time, and then all of a sudden this punk comes in? How'd you take that? I mean, that's not easy on the ego, right?
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. I kind of thought of myself as like a starter, and I'm sure Alan did as well. And I came in after that football season was over. I think we made a deep run that year. It would have been his, redshirt freshman year. We made a deep run in the football playoffs. So I got in the room pretty late. even not in shape, like even when I was in shape, I knew that this was going to be a tough road to hoe. He had improved tremendously from his freshman year to his redshirt freshman year, his second year in college, and obviously the results are what they are. You can't argue with them, and he beat me out, and here we are, 25 odd years later, still talking about it. So, but
Yeah.
it was hard, but I don't think it hindered our friendship. I still got along with him great. I was his practice partner for 2 years there. I made sure that I went into the room and I worked him as hard as I could push him. And there was never any bad blood. So I don't think that there was any bad blood from him to me as well. And like I said, I still consider him a friend, and
Sure.
I think he does a great job. He's, I think, as good of a coach as he was a wrestler.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those hard things too, where you kind of look around the state to the other WIAC teams, and you're like, "Gosh, I could be a starter there. I could be a starter there, but I'm behind this freaking stud." That's tough.
Yeah, and I those thoughts obviously crossed your mind. But honestly, I wouldn't trade it. Like, I had a great experience wrestling at UWL. I had a great experience playing football, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. If you could ask me to go back and would I do something different, I don't think I would. Like, obviously, it shaped me who I am, and I never got to be the starter, but I felt like I was a pretty high level wrestler. Being able to wrestle Ryan Allen every day, like how blessed was I to be able to be in a room with 3 different national champions and, to get beat up by those guys. And it was pretty special.
So Deke, knowing around that time range, as early mid 2000s, you've been the head coach for 18 years.
Yep.
There can't have been too long of a gap between you being done wrestling and you coaching, right?
Yeah, so I graduated in December of 2004 from the Cross, and then my first teaching, so I graduated with a bio degree thinking I was going to go into healthcare, and went to a semester of actually nursing school, believe it or not, decided it wasn't for me, and then I went back and got my post-baccalaureate at Viterbo, and got my teaching license there, and then got my first teaching and coaching job actually in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, of all places. So
Wow.
Taught and coached there for 2 years, loved it, had some great mentors. Steve Olson was the head coach there at the time. Bob Lurch was his head assistant, and those guys were full of knowledge, and I learned a ton from those guys. And then my wife finished dental school down at Marquette, and when she finished, we knew we wanted to move back to the Cross. And it just so happened that there happened to be a teaching position open at Aquinas, and my head coach, John Wissing, was stepping down from the head coaching position. I think he had coached for about 15 years and was just ready to step away. And so it was just perfect timing for us, moving back and for me to slide into that position.
Yeah, I know we kind of talked about it on that sectional preview, but kind of speed running through your tenure at Aquinas. I know you guys made team sectionals a couple times in the early 2010s, and then there's a little lull between the next run of team sectionals. And I bring this story up not as like to rub dirt in or anything, but Deke, this was almost 10 years ago, and I don't know if you'd remember this, but Holman went to Aquinas, and the duel was in the little gym. They kept the team score on the whiteboard. For perspective, folks, this was 9 or 10 years ago. Holman won that duel 82-0. We went in there, we were trying to get 84. And I only bring that up because here we are now talking about a team state championship. And what do you think, DeCap, like during your run of coaching, what do you feel like changed from the first half of your career to this back half now?
It's never just one thing, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't think there's like one big thing that made the change. I think it was a lot of really small things that added up into a big thing, right? So I think first of all, me like teaching in the school, I think that's a big deal. Like I get to see the kids every day. And plus I teach in the 7th grade. So I get to see them right when they get into the middle school there at Aquinas. I took over the middle school football program in 2015, and I did a ton of recruiting off the middle school football team. I got my hands on those guys for 8 weeks in the fall, and I convinced a lot of them, kind of strong arm a lot of them into coming up from middle school wrestling. We started our own youth club at Aquinas my second year there, and I actually ran the K2 program myself for 15 years. I saw my sons go through it, and then I actually coached it for 2 years after I didn't have any of my boys through it. And I think just the sticking with the process, even though it didn't pay off immediately, like we knew what we had coming down the pipeline, in our youth wrestling clubs and by getting those kids out in middle school wrestling, and just building our numbers. I started with 9 kids my first year. I think by my third year I had close to 25. And then at our peak, we had right around 35. And I think this year we were sitting at 30 in the room, and I project to be about 30 to 35 again next year. With a school of about 300 kids, just a little more, that's pretty good numbers. So, and we're trying to build the girls program, so we're trying to make headway there as well. But I think, just being patient and seeing the process through of all those little things has kind of got us to where we are today.
So, Deke, and help me on this one too. 2 years ago, I ref the Aquinas football game in Columbus. That was a really good game, by the way. And,
yes.
And the coach, I remember that one very vividly. I talk about often. That's where Timar ran me over, and I told him not to do that again.
And he survived somehow.
Yeah, well, it was more not. It wasn't a flat. I mean, I was able to brush it, and he knocked me over, and then I came back and I said, "Yeah, let's just not do that anymore. That's a good idea." But I was talking to the football coach before the game, and he said that the football program a while back wasn't that good.
Right.
So that's amazing. Like, we look at Aquinas wrestling now, we look at Aquinas football, and everybody gets Aquinas football, but yet we're talking 10, 15 years ago, they were kind of where the wrestling program was.
Yeah. Tom Lee's done a great job there. And he is so supportive of Aquinas wrestling and encourage those guys to come out. There's been multiple years here, especially when were making their state championship run, where all 5 offensive linemen were wrestlers, where the starting 3 guys with their hands down on the line, they were a 3-5, were all wrestlers. And the grand majority of the linebackers were all wrestlers. And so he has a healthy respect for wrestling, and we kind of feed each other. We're both big proponents of being multi-sport athletes. I feel like our X factor, and I hate even saying this, we've got a great speed and strength program with Eddie Hodges. He runs this, it's called Three Rivers Performance here out of La Crosse. And we were the first high school that he started working with when he came back to La Crosse or started his business here in La Crosse. And we've got a great culture in the weight room right now. This morning when I walked by the weight room, going up to my classroom, there had to be 40 kids in there. And the baseball team was doing speed work in the big gym. The girls soccer team was doing some speed work as well. So I think that's kind of been a big X factor for us as well, as the kids have really bought into it, that speed and strength program. And while they're not on the mat wrestling when they're doing that, they're still getting faster and stronger and more athletic. And I think that's made a big difference for all of our programs at Aquinas. So.
Oh, yeah. I'll say this. And also, Deke, I know I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. So if you have anything else on the 2010s, feel free.
No, I had some. I tell you what, I had some really nice kids back then, but we just didn't have any wrestlers. We had guys that played football and wrestled. We had guys that did soccer and wrestled, and which is great. You need those guys too, and those guys, I think wrestling still benefits them in their other sports. And when we started getting guys who were wrestlers, I tell everybody, Joe Pinky was kind of our first wrestler, and he really kind of changed the culture of our team. We're doing the freestyle and Greco kind of became the norm instead of the exception. And now we've got a ton of guys doing Greco and freestyle and wrestling in the spring and doing spring tournaments. And, I think when he kind of stepped in the room, he changed that culture. And thankfully, that culture has stuck around, and we've had great leadership. I talked about our senior leadership, I think, at length after the team state title. And it hasn't been just this group. I've had great seniors, I think, for many, many, many years. So.
Joe Pinky, now a national All-American, right?
All-American Joe Pinky. Yeah, I got to put some respect on that name now. He still can't beat me, so.
There might need to be a catch weight for that one.
No, I'm gonna keep my weight on. If I got to drop down to him, I think he's gonna get the best of me. But
I'll close out as we round into the 2020s and get more recent here. Yep. Funny story for you. Well, it's funny to me. I hope it's a little funny to you guys. But for the longest time, I didn't know that Deke's name was actually Deke, and I'll explain that. And that I heard his name was Deke. And my brain logically jumping a couple too many steps. I thought that he was, because Lulov said Deke, and I'm like, oh, it must be short. Like, he must be saying Deke, like it's short for deacon, like he's Deke Stanek. Like, I was thinking like
Deacon.
a deacon was a
It is
position
Deacon.
in the
Deacon
church.
is my
And I'm
full
like,
name.
okay, yeah, he coaches for a private school, so it makes sense. Like, he's Deacon Stanek. So I'd say for like 2 to 3 years, Deke, I did not know that was just your name. I thought you were Deacon
thought I was
Stanek
in,
of
like,
the church. Yes.
I gotcha.
Oh, I get you now. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
my dad was a huge fan of Deacon Jones. And T, you're probably too young to remember who that is. I don't know if Steve, remember Deacon Jones from the Los Angeles Rams?
Football.
I thought he was the
yeah.
Cowboys, but yeah, I remember who he is. Yeah.
My dad was a fan of him, liked the name, and that's kind of where it came from. So, but yeah, no, not a lay priest or anything like that. So I can't baptize you.
So, religious man, but the name is not of religious origin. Okay, yep, there it is. Yeah, I just had to get that out there. And I thought I held that one in. I'm like, that is so embarrassing on my part. Well, Deke, we kind of get to the culture change now. You guys start going on a run of team sectionals up in the early 2020s. And we'll talk more about you. If you want to talk about those teams right now, you can. But I think maybe we can touch back on them here once we get to the postseason stuff. So
Sure.
However we want to go about this, do we want to hop right to this year?
Yeah. You guys take it how you want it. So we can talk about those teams later too. So
we'll trail back to them because trust me, there's a lot of all-star names that I'm sure we'll reference back to at some juncture. So going to this year's team, Deke, the $1 million question: when did you think or realize that this year's team had the potential to be team state champions?
Yeah. So I knew we were going to be a really good tournament team. I knew we had those studs in our lineup, but we had some kind of, I'm not going to say question marks, but just some unknowns down low with some of our young guys at, Peter White at 106, Mason Clark at 120. We had some other guys, Isaac Miller at 190. We knew it was going to be solid, but we didn't know if we were going to be able to put together 14 weights in a row that would be able to contend for a team state title. And so you asked me when I knew. I think when we hosted our quad in the middle of January, and we had WIAA Fremont come down, we had Marathon come down and wrestled West Salem Bangor. And so when we wrestled and beat Marathon and WIAA at the quad, then I had some confidence that I'm like, hey, we're going to be in the mix. And I knew that teams were going to look different in the postseason. So, and I knew both duels were close enough where I wasn't like super confident that we were going to go in there and walk through it. And I knew we'd have to continue wrestling our best and keep getting better throughout the season. But I would say at that quad, I felt like I know we can do it. Like we're going to be able to do this year. But that was kind of the moment or the tournament that I knew that we were going to be in the mix.
About the middle of the year. Okay, so we'll hop back to the start then. Yeah. We kind of touched on off-season stuff already. A lot of guys doing Three Rivers stuff. A lot of guys doing freestyle Greco. How involved do you stay during the off-season? Because I know you guys go to Malachek, right?
We used to. So now we host, and Malachek's was great. Like we loved it. We just we've been there for quite a few years, and we kind of want to switch things up. So now we host our own camp at Aquinas. So this is the first thing we're going to host this year. We're hosting Mitchell Mesenbrink for a couple of days in June.
Nice.
And so we kind of run our team camp with that. So what we do is we'll have so our boys are, and everybody from the area will come in, and Mitchell and his dad, John, will run camp. And then on day one, we'll go paintball after that. And then on day two, Peter White's family is super generous, and they've got this 80-yard slip and slide off this steep hill. So we'll do that on day two. And then on day three, we'll go in and lift, and we'll probably just go in and wrestle because it's just a 2-day camp with those coaches. And then we're going to go down to Land in Natura, which is down in the Dells. It's a man-made lake, and they've got a bunch of inflatables. So that's kind of our team thing now. And so it's not a ton of wrestling, but I think the team building aspect of it is probably as, if not more important than the actual wrestling part of things. Getting those young guys, those incoming freshmen, and we actually bring some of our middle schoolers too if they want to sign up for the camp. But getting them comfortable with the older guys and, having the older guys kind of welcome those young guys in. I think that is a big part of getting a good, solid culture and making sure everybody feels welcome. I think that's a big part of having a successful team as much as the wrestling aspect.
Right.
Well, socially, it puts you guys way ahead to start the year. Like, you're not making a lot of
Right.
introductions at the start of the season as
Yep.
opposed to,
Yeah. And I take their cell phones away from them over the course of those 3 days, like when we do team camp. And I tell you what, the bus rides are a lot louder, but I
Yep.
would rather have that than those guys staring at their screens all the time. So
That's good.
I love
like
that
it.
you do that. I know you always did that for
Yeah.
Malachek, and
Yeah.
I think more teams for team camps should definitely implement that.
Do you let them have it for 5 minutes so they can keep their Snapchat streaks going?
No. So and that's always
Oh.
the big complaint. They're like, Coach, I got 300 days of a string with this guy, and I'm not a Snapchatter, so I don't even really know what they're talking about. But I tell you what, by the end of camp, like some of those guys, because I'll give them back to them on like the last day on the bus, and some of them are like, Coach, I don't even want it. Like
Yeah,
so I think
good.
that they recognize, I think that they enjoy their life more without it, especially around their buddies.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go old man complaining here, but I feel that. I'm on my phone a lot, so I think sometimes I need to do that.
Yeah.
So you guys do the team camp. Any other, like, do you guys do open mats then throughout the season and whatnot? And like, how are you the type of coach where you're on someone where it's like, hey, why weren't you at open mat this time? Or how do you carry yourself through the off season?
Yep. So in the spring, we do exit meetings after the season's over. So like I did 4 exit meetings tonight after school. So I try and schedule about 4 to 5 until I get through all my kids. I try and get through in about 2 weeks, but this year it'll stretch into next week as well. So, but at the exit meeting, we talk about like this season. We talk about like what they're going to do this spring in terms of a sport or a club or whatever it might be. And then like if they're interested in off-season work, I will let them know that. I don't do any coaching in the spring, but I let them know about opportunities. Obviously, Law runs a great Greco freestyle program. Tyler Gable's kind of getting his AWA thing off the ground here in lacrosse. So there's a lot of really good opportunities for our guys to get better, and I kind of make them aware of that. And then the guys who want to wrestle, I kind of bring them all in after the exit meetings, because they actually fill out like a Google form questionnaire. And all the guys and gals who are interested in doing spring and summer off-season like competitions and training, I'll just make them aware more specifically of the opportunities, show them where to sign up and do some of that stuff. And obviously my son Lincoln, does freestyle and Greco. And so I'm involved there with him, but now he just got his driver's license, which has been heavenly for us as parents. So I don't got to, drop him off and pick him up anymore. So he's actually at practice right now as we have this until 7. So, and then I'll travel to the tournaments just to watch, but minus Lincoln, I don't corner anybody. The club coaches corner those guys, and our, Law and Tyler do great jobs. So I have complete trust in those guys. So I encourage them to compete. The ones that, aren't doing it are generally out for a spring sport, whether it be, I got a lot of guys playing baseball. I got some guys playing golf. There's, other guys who like just want to be a part of the team November through February. And I'm okay with that. Like you need those guys too.
Sure.
And so I'm completely fine with that. In the summer, we run open mats in the mornings after our lift. And that was new just this last year. We used to have open mats in the evenings. And, what I found was, work gets in the way, family stuff gets in the way, a lot of those guys, if they're working construction, they're pretty exhausted by the night. Where I find so our boys lift from 6 to 7:30 Monday through Thursday. And so we started doing open mats Tuesday and Thursdays, just at our facility, from like 7:45 until 9 o'clock. So just an hour and 15 minutes, mostly technique based. And our numbers went way up. Our participation rate went way up. So that was a good change, I think. And so we're going to do the same thing this summer. And I don't run it. I generally try and like have a clinician come in and run it, just because I feel like they hear my voice enough during the season. And it's nice for them to hear, somebody else give technique. And there's so many good guys in our area who are willing and available to do that. I'd be remiss not to take advantage of their expertise. And I learned stuff by watching them too. And actually what I do then during the open mats for our high schoolers is on Tuesdays, I'll run our K2 group, and it's just for an hour. And to call it wrestling is probably a stretch. It's mostly like games and acrobatics, and we do a little bit of wrestling, and I call it roughhousing, like instead of calling it live. And then on Thursdays, our 3rd through 6th grade will come in, and I'll run that group on Thursdays from 8 to 9 a.m. So it's one day a week. They get on the mat, and again, it's mostly games, and it just kind of keeps them on the mat and having fun. And my goal for those kids is just to fall in love with the sport. So then when they get to high school, they love it, and we can crank up the intensity and do all that at that point. So
Nice. I love it.
That's got to be great energy in those K-6 practices.
I tell people I'm super passionate about coaching high school and I love it, but the most fun part of my job is running that K-2 group. So they are a ton of fun, and it's great. Like, and they keep me young too. It's fun.
That's good.
So the guy, I peeked in your notes, and I tried not to look, but I couldn't help myself because I'm nosy. Because our next thing we're going to be talking about is scheduling.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued, and I'd be interested to know how many coaches do this. But what do you try to prioritize when you make your schedule throughout the year?
Yeah, and so I'll start by saying every team is different, and how I did my schedule when I first started coaching to how I do it now is like completely different. When I started, we were very inexperienced. We actually pulled ourselves out of the bi-state for a few years. God bless Jason Lulloff for kind of holding us a spot, just because for a few years, like, I knew I wasn't going to have anybody make day 2. We ended up going to the Northern Badger for a couple of years, where it's just not as many teams. And I'm not dogging on the Northern Badger. They've got some quality teams there, and those guys that make the semis and finals are fantastic wrestlers. But we just felt like we couldn't compete. So, but now with the teams that I've had, I'm really big on quality over quantity. There's a 50 match limit here in Wisconsin, and we're not even that, and that's just for the regular season. Like, we aren't even close to reaching that. I mean, some of my guys are close to 20 matches away from that, and they haven't even missed a single match. And so I'm a big believer in you get better in the practice room. For me, everything up until postseason is about evaluation. So, we went to the Dan Gable Donnybrook. That was our first competition this year down in Coralville, Iowa. It was a very humbling experience for all of our guys. Nobody left there without at least one loss. Tyson Martin got the chance to wrestle the number 1 ranked heavyweight in the nation down there, and he got tech fauled. As good as we all know Tyson is, and have all watched him wrestle, like, that was a really good experience for him. And he got better because of it. And so we went back to the practice room and we evaluate and we get better. And so I like spending more time in the practice room than competing, especially with the program where we're at right now. And so, Tyson Martin wrestled every single match for us this year, and I think he was 46-1. So we had 47 total matches. And I think if you asked him, if you're like, hey, did you feel cheated by not having 55 or 60 matches going through team state? He would say no. I think he was very happy with our schedule and how much he wrestled, and knowing that he had great competition at the grand majority of the meets that we went to. And I think most of my guys would say the same thing. So I want to get better in practice, and I want to get exposed by good teams and good wrestlers. And we do that by, scheduling the chat fields and having Holman, in our conference. How blessed are we that we get to wrestle those guys every year? The bi-state tournament is a great tournament to get exposed in. The Duffy, the Highlander, which obviously was canceled this year, but because of weather. But that's why we go to those tournaments is to get exposed. And then we come back to the practice room. We're like, hey, here's where we need to get work as a team, and then individually we break things down to, like, hey, you struggled on bottom this weekend. Let's make that a focus here after practice this week for you. So.
That's
now going through your season a little bit, we're starting at the Donnybrook. The first question I do have to ask is, how is the experience seeing Drayshawn Ross wrestle in person? Because
I tell you what, I think people throw around the term like athletic freak fairly loosely, but like that's what he is. I stood next to him right before Tyson's match in the corridor, and he's probably my height, 6'3". He only weighs 230 pounds. He's not super heavy, but he's got super wide shoulders, a real narrow waist, and he is as explosive as any athlete. Like, he looked like Jake Fitzpatrick wrestling at heavyweight is how I would describe him. Like, he was that agile and explosive, and quite frankly, minus one match, he was really fun to watch. Like, I enjoyed watching him wrestle, except against Timar. So
I remember, like, they posted the video on Facebook, like IA Wrestle or whatever posted that match, and people were like, wow, like, this guy's ranked number 1, or like, is this guy even trying to defend his shots? And I'm just thinking, like, I don't think you guys realize how good this dude is. Like,
yeah. There are levels to wrestling, and obviously Drayshawn is on another one. I think Timar is on another one too, but Drayshawn is just maybe right now, anyways, on one above him. But
in the big picture, that's probably better for Tyson too.
Absolutely. Like, I tell my guys, if you're undefeated at the end of our season, I didn't do my job as a coach. Like I think Jake Fitzpatrick, I think, is the only guy that went undefeated, and we tried. I bumped him up at the Clash against some really good kids, and he always just kind of came through that year. But we're chasing losses. Like, we want to get exposed. We want to know where our weaknesses are. So when we walk into the state tournament, we've shored up those areas where they might have been lesser strength for us. And two, we walk into the state tournament like confident that, you know what, we've seen good competition before, and my guys walk in, I think, pretty confident, maybe even knowing that this might not even be their toughest tournament of the year.
Right.
So like a guy like Roger Flegge took two pretty tough losses down at the Donnybrook to two really good kids. So that was a humbling experience for everybody, but we got better because of it.
We're on the Donnybrook, and Deke, we can just take some time now, or you can take some time if you just want to talk through your schedule a little bit. I have the schedule up as well, so I'm sure I might interject, might have some questions. You did we just got to go right to the duels and the Dells, man.
That's right.
Talk about good duel experience that gets you guys ready for the end of the year. That's the place to be.
We love that tournament. That's a great run tournament. There are great teams there. This year we ran into Reedsburg in, I think, round 2. And they beat Mount Horror Barneveld, I think, in a duel earlier this year. They had a really nice duel team. So really, from duel 2 all the way through our last duel, we wrestled some really quality teams. We love going there. It's a great event. I don't see us leaving for a while, if at all, in my tenure. I mean, if they keep running it, we'll keep going. And actually, that weekend, we were wrestling without Roger Flegge and Isaac Miller. Roger Flegge was leading a religious retreat called Kairos that weekend, and Isaac was attending it. You attend as a junior, and then you lead it as a senior. And so I kind of had my coaching chops cut up for me that weekend, like bumping guys and sliding guys. And I had a young man named Owen Skemp. He was a 157 pounder. We weighed him in at 175 to wrestle 190 for us that weekend. He did an admirable job. We wrestled really well every duel. We lost to Marshfield in a great duel. Cody C's kids are obviously always really well coached. And then beat Shiocton in the third place match?
Third place, yeah.
Third place match, yep. So beat Shiocton in a great duel. They got some good kids. We got tested at a few weights there. Was really, really happy with how my guys wrestled and competed, even being down a couple of guys that we were. So, love that tournament. And my boys just love staying overnight in the hotel and swimming.
Yeah.
And then the hotel breakfast for the heavyweights, that's a big hit for those guys. So
I gotta say, pretty cool thing for Roger and Isaac to be gone for. And since you brought up Isaac Miller, when I think of Isaac Miller, like, it may not be a household name to the rest of the state, but that dude is like the ultimate glue guy for you guys. I kind of picked up on it as the year went along, where it's like, I don't know if Isaac Miller's supposed to win this match or not, but all I know is he is going to do better than anticipated to help the team out in this duel setting. Yeah,
he's you said ultimate glue guy, ultimate team guy. Like, he really started wrestling really well the second half of the season at 190. He's actually an undersized 190. Probably weighs 184, 185. He doesn't have to drop any weight. And there were, kind of starting at WIAA was kind of his coming out in our quad was kind of his coming out party. We sent him out there. We're like, hey, we just need you to lose this match by decision. Wrestle really smart. That guy ended up being a state qualifier for him, and he lost by decision, and that sealed the duel for us. And had a big win against Iowa Grant for us. We bumped him up to 215 against a really good 215 pound kid. Got a takedown in the last seconds. At Team State, wrestled outstanding again against state qualifiers and the guys who won matches down at state. He gave up decisions instead of getting, majored or teched or pinned. And I tell you what, I think that's where, as a team, we probably made the most improvement, was learning how to lose well in duels. Mm-hmm. And I think that we improved there really, really well. And ultimately, I think that's, as much as, our big guys got us pins and everything, a lot of the guys that won us the duels were the Peter Whites, moving him up to 113 against Cedar Grove, Belgium, and only getting decision, getting that late takedown to only give up a decision. Like, I think if you would have just watched the sidelines after that match, you would have thought we won that match instead of lost it, and Isaac Miller did a great job of that second half of the season, and, had some nice wins, but probably even lost better, had bigger losses for us in the way that he lost.
Peter White, is he related to stud running back Kyle White?
He is not. No relation there.
No
relation.
Wow, I'm missing the mark on these similar last names.
You are not. Yeah. Well, it's a pretty common name, T.
Okay, yeah. Oh, wow. I am just now, I don't know if Steve or I caught this when we did our weekly recap this week, but I'm just now looking at the Chatfield duel result, Deke, and it looks like, maybe aside from the win, you got what you wanted from that duel. And
got exposed. They had some really good kids, and they were good, like we were really good. And so we eked out some like close decision wins that we had to earn. And our guys, I thought we wrestled really well. They had some really good kids up top, and at 215 they had a really good kid. And they're from 106 until really 150. They don't have a hole in their lineup. Even like Waylon Hargrove and Marcus Clark, my 65 and 75, those guys like had to earn their wins. Like, Chatfield is really well coached. Mosseth does a really good job with that. And again, like the fact that we lost, I didn't care. I thought we wrestled really well, and I told the guys as much after the duel. And I said, these duels are what's going to help us win Team State later down the road. We learned from that, and we had a couple matches there where we didn't lose well, and so that was kind of a point of emphasis moving forward from that duel was, hey, we got to learn how to lose better, versus giving up some bonus plates at some of the weights that we did.
Deke, where do you stand at? And it's got to be kind of tough because you're always bringing a full roster, but where do you stand at in some duels, especially the Chatfield duel? Are you ever a guy where you'll bump a kid up just to get a good match, regardless of what it could do for the duel result?
Yes.
Or does that depend on the duel, I guess?
It does depend on the duel. Conference duel, if it's close, I think that means something to the kids a lot of times. They want to win that duel. So then at that point, if it's advantageous for us to move away from a good match, we'll do that, just to get that team win. But against a team like Chatfield, where in the long scheme of things, obviously besides the pride, it doesn't mean anything except for us just to get better. Then I have and will keep guys down just to get a good look, maybe trying to match up Martez with one of their good guys, or Tyler Paulson or Roger against one of their better kids, just to get those matchups. So, we wanted to beat Chatfield. It wasn't in the cards that night. They wrestled better than us. But in a duel like that, would I keep a kid down instead of trying to go for win? Yes, I probably would.
Mm-hmm. Just curious. I always like asking people that. It's always fun getting people's thoughts on
different perspectives. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Bi-State. When did you guys make your return back to Bi-State, by the way?
Yeah.
I want to say I had a group of young men who I recruited off the football field in middle school that kind of came all the way through. They were really good athletes. You guys won't remember these names: Zach and Noah DeGroot, Charlie Langenberg.
I remember the DeGroots. We had some big JV battles back in the day.
Yeah. So those guys were really good athletes, but had never wrestled until middle school. And kind of when they came up, I knew that we were turning the corner, and I knew what we had coming up in our youth, and I knew it was probably a good time for us to get back in there. We still didn't get a lot of guys to like day two, and so during those years, but I knew what we had coming. So we only did Northern Badger for 2 years. So when those guys came through, it must have been, and Loloff would probably have a better idea, but it was probably around 2018 or 2017 when we jumped back in. So.
And for you, there's got to be some sentimental value to that tournament as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Got to wrestle in it myself. Was on a couple of really good teams when I was in high school. When I was at Aquinas, we took second in D2 my sophomore year, and then we won D2 my junior year and took third overall behind Rapids and Owatonna, Minnesota, who back in the day was really, really good. So
I think this is a great opportunity for a little trivia question. Aquinas, not the first state championship. Aquinas actually had how many WISA state championships?
2.
No. Deke, how many? I got them for you if you need a little help. I got 8, and this is what
I was going to say 66 and 67 were the first 2.
Oh, I didn't have that. Wow. Oh, yeah, those were the I didn't write those down because that was like a different category. So that technically 10. 10 before this one. But
and then in the 80s, I think they won 6 straight.
Yeah, 85 to 90. You are correct. Yep.
Okay, and then it would have been 97 and 99. So it would have been my sophomore and senior year. And actually, our best team that we had was my junior year, and we didn't win it. So that was the team that
GPT. There might have been more then. So we got if you had 99, I didn't have 99, so might be.
It would have been it would have been 99. Yeah, 97 and 99.
We got to open the yearbook for a second here. When was that dual or a team like state scoring?
So it was just state scoring my sophomore year, and then there was like state scoring my senior year. But my senior year they also had like a team state championship for Wisconsin, which we won as well. So
you had your best team ever. Can you think of which school would have beat them, Steve? Or is that a trivia question?
In 99? Oh, I didn't look at
98. 98 we took second.
Second. Which WISA team would have beat you? I mean, I'm going to go with Fox Valley Lutheran. Oh, wait.
I'll guess Winnebago Lutheran Academy. Just shout out.
No, I don't even think they had wrestling team. I'm going to go with
Metro Milwaukee team. Metro Milwaukee.
Oh, Wisconsin Lutheran?
No.
Oh, my Atlanta.
Yeah.
Bill Young coached them.
All right, Steve, this is your territory now.
Catholic Memorial.
Oh, yeah, I should have went with that.
Yeah.
Nope, wouldn't have got that.
Oh, I didn't know Catholic Memorial rolled that strong back in the day.
Yeah, they had some good kids, good individuals, and we had a bad weekend. As good as we wrestled at Bi-State, we had 2 finalists. My junior year at Bi-State, I took 4th. We had another guy in the 3rd place match, and then I think we had 7 or 8 place winners out of 13 weight classes. I was back before there was 14. So we had a solid team and really good dual team. I think we lost one dual. We tied Holman that year, I believe, we lost to Holman in the first duel of the year, and then I think tied another one against another really good team. So. But now I'm dating myself. Let's move on.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
So
that was my fault. I
edit that out.
I asked trivia questions. So
no, that was perfect. This year's Bi-State jumping ahead. I can't say the years. Jumping ahead, 30-ish years, we'll say. Deke. How do you attack Bi-State? Because obviously it is a big deal. But it's also just a midseason tournament, and it's kind of hard to gauge a team goal because you could have 5 studs and win it. So how do you attack Bi-State? How do you get the kids? Like, what do you tell the kids to get mentally prepared for the tournament?
So I tell them the same exact thing I tell them before every competition. I said, this is not a big competition. It's just the next competition. I think when you start making events bigger, or like more important than any other event, I think it causes the kids to wrestle tight. And so when we bring them in, after a hard warm up, and I give them a speech, and I tell them the exact same thing every time. And I even say, hey, I have nothing monumental to say. I'm going to say the same thing I said last time. Go out, win first contact, wrestle hard, be proud of your effort when you came off the mat. I keep it short and simple. The way that my guys train, I was confident that I didn't have to be a big rah-rah guy with them. I knew that they were ready. I don't try and make any event any bigger than it is, including team state. Like I said, hey, this is just the next event. All right. And we're going to continue wrestle well because we've wrestled well all year. And I knew that if we wrestled well, we'd have a good Bi-State, which we did. I thought the guys wrestled outstanding. So.
Can you expound on win first contact real quick?
Yeah, so I talk about winning first contact. So we do everyday drills in our room, and I think the guys get bored with them, but they buy in because they know they work. We do hand fighting drills. That's the first thing we do after they kind of do their calisthenics and aerobics and stuff like their acrobatic stuff. When we get with their partner, we do stance work, and then we talk about winning first contact. Means being physical with the hand fight, but being patient. Let that guy reach first. And then we're grabbing wrists, and then we're climbing the ladder, and we're being heavy on the head. And we're moving those guys around. And that first 30 seconds in a match is really, really important. As much as I think you can have a game plan, but I think a lot of times it's sometimes good to be physical just to be physical as well. And that's what I mean by winning first contact. Go out there and let that guy know that you're coming to wrestle. So.
Love it.
I like it. I'm making notes. for if I ever take over a program.
And hey, I stole that from somebody else, so that's not an original thought of mine. So,
couple of notes from Bi-State. Martez Sheard, I won't try to jinx it, but currently halfway there to joining a very short list of 4-time Bi-State champions. A good wrestler. Seems like he turns it up a notch at Bi-State.
Yeah, he's like like when I think of Martez, I think of a guy who's hyper competitive. From playing handball before practice, and then there's another game we play called chess. He loves to play chess, and he's hyper competitive in chess, and just loves to compete. He's a guy that loves to compete. You know, he signed up for the King of Wisconsin, week after the state tournament, and had a great match against a very tough kid from Baraboo. He's like an anytime, any place kind of guy. Like he wants to wrestle and compete all the time. If he could wrestle every night, compete instead of practice, he probably would. So he just loves to
He's
wrestle.
a gamer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tyson Martin and Grant Matthews. I was very much looking forward to this match, and I'll preface this, Deke. We are very big Grant Matthews fans.
Oh, he's a great kid.
Yes. Overall great dude, excellent wrestler, and still felt confident about the result in Tyson winning. How do you approach a match like that where Tyson might be on a different level, but also Grant's still a dangerous wrestler very much in his own right?
Yes, he's very dangerous, and I was very honest with Tymar, and Tymar knew that already. It wasn't like I was saying anything monumental to him. He had watched Grant wrestle. So we just talked about if you get into a tie that you don't like, just clear it. Like take the stall call, clear the tie if you have to, because I knew eventually he was going to get to his attacks.
Mm-hmm.
If he just kept pulling the trigger, and Grant he's so incredibly strong. It's like wrestling a refrigerator. I mean, that's what I imagine it would be like being out there against a kid. Just
and sneaky athletic, not sneaky athletic. He's just athletic.
Yes, that young man can move, and you wouldn't know it by looking at him, and he's incredibly strong. And so Tymar just had to kind of choose his spots a little bit there, and he did a good job of that. Wasn't successful on all of his attacks, but I knew that if he kept pulling the trigger that he eventually he'd get a couple takedowns. And
we almost had a crash off the mat, in which I was very concerned for the mat side workers.
Bi-State folklore, I've heard it happened one time on the elevated stage, and I'm like, man, my fourth year here, and I almost got to see the second time.
Hey, they weren't doing their job. A lot of those guys on the mat side, they were running away. They weren't going to catch Grant and Tymar as they almost fell off the thing. So I was going to write a letter to Wolof about that.
What they were running for? A clean pair of shorts is what they were running for. I did talk to the one guy, Teague, and I you probably remember his name, but I saw him at Team State. We were in between. Won't tell you where we were. It was a place with some festivities going on. But he said he yelled at everybody because he was the one guy. Everybody ran, and he was the one guy that stayed there. He said, I did my job. And he was pretty proud of it.
Stood his ground, yes.
That's right.
Anything else on your boys from Bi-State, Deke, before I have one more question involving this week?
Yeah, that's – you talk about – if you make day 2 and you place in that top 12, like those 11th, 12th place guys, I don't think you get enough respect because there are some of those guys who end up placing at state. Like that is such a hard grinder of a tournament over 2 days. Waylon Hargrove, I think, ended up wrestling like 9 matches over the course of 2 days. Like he was exhausted, and he had some really, really tough matches, had some close losses at the end, but again, got better because of it. But what a grinder of a tournament to really test yourselves against the best kids in our state in Minnesota. And so we love the Bi-State. We love going there and testing ourselves.
Have you always been big on having the kids wrestle during that holiday break week? I know I'm only asking because Machik just went to his first holiday break tournament in like a long time. So, yeah. How do you navigate that schedule?
It's hard. And so as a coach, I have to be respectful of, some families have, are traveling. They've got family that are out of state, and so they got to travel. And so I'm fully respectful of that. The expectation for some of our practices are that they're varsity only over that time period as well. So I'll kind of give the JV guys a little bit of a reprieve, and then this year with the way the clash fell after Bi-State, we ended up not going to the clash because it was so close. I have a ton of respect for Evansville that did both. That I'm sure it wasn't easy to do that. And then honestly, after bi-state, I usually give them about 3 days off. I tell them don't wrestle, stay off the mat. Especially those guys that made day 2, they need to get better physically a lot of times, and just kind of get them a little bit of a mental break from the mat before. I think we came back just the first day of school, which I think was January 2nd or 3rd this year. After bi-state was over, so I think a good break from the mat is a good mental break for them and a good physical break as well. So, but I am respectful of families traveling and things like that too. So,
well, and a good break because you didn't go to the Clash, but you went to the Duffy, which a very solid tournament.
Yeah, Angelo La Rosa, head coach at Port Wash, runs a good tournament. He brings in high quality teams. They've got a great coaches room. They had tacos this year. It was excellent.
How do you end up across the state at a tournament like that?
So Angelo and I were college teammates at UW La Crosse, and I again consider him a great friend, good dude, just a great human being. And he reached out to me a couple years back, and we were kind of looking at switching up our schedule again. We were kind of knew we were going to be getting pretty competitive, and he's like, hey, we got a really good tournament. It's Friday night. I'm a huge fan of Friday night tournaments. He's like, and I looked at the teams, who was coming back, and I'm like, hey, we're in. So have been going, I think this was our 3rd year, I believe. The first year we made the mistake of going down and back in a school bus. That might have been the most uncomfortable bus ride back in my life, and cold. So now we take a coach bus down.
You drove down and then back in the same, wow, you didn't stay in a hotel. Wow.
No. Yeah. So same day, I think the guys wanted to strangle me on the bus ride back. We got back, I think, around 2 or 3 a.m. But again, I'm a huge Friday night guy because then they have their whole weekend off. Even though they, are up late or, if you want to say early in the morning on Saturday, they get to sleep in. If they want, they can take a break from the mat. Some of my guys will wrestle on Sundays. But I do appreciate those Friday night tournaments and then having that weekend off.
I have a trivia question for Steve here. But before I ask Steve the trivia question, because it's not totally wrestling related, how'd you feel about the Duffy performance?
It was good. I think we walked away with 2 champs in Tyson and Tez again. Roger Flegge made the finals against Newbert, and I mean, we all know what we got in Newbert, and I thought Roger went and acquitted himself very well. He was wrestling aggressively, and he was wrestling to try and score points. And I'm hoping Newbert appreciates that, because I'm thinking some guys probably go out there and are a little bit more defensive, where Roger was, trying to move forward, and that Carson is just such a good kid. And we talked about levels. I think he's just on a little bit different level. But again, that's why we go to tournaments like that. Roger got exposed in a couple positions on his feet, specifically with hand fighting and stuff, but he got better because of it. And everybody took some lumps. Waylon got to wrestle Gage Gross, and I honestly wasn't super aware of Gage. I apologize, young man, if you're listening to this or watching this, but boy, after that match was over, I was like, he won the award for who the heck is this kid? He's like, he kind of tore Waylon up there at the end of the match and was looking really good. And I don't know if Waylon has taken a defeat like that in a long time, where he got kind of picked apart, especially at the end of the match. That young man was really good. But overall, I thought we wrestled well. Marcus Clark, I thought, put together a really nice tournament. Some of our other guys had a tougher tournament. Peter White went 0-2. Ran into a couple of solid kids and just didn't wrestle that well. And we had a discussion about that. And, he was real positive moving forward. And, we knew he was going to get better. And he's a freshman. And sometimes freshmen just have off weekends for a reason that they can't describe and you can't describe. And we just kind of chalked it up as one of those. And we moved forward. And he was positive about it, which is, his mindset is so good. I love that young man.
So when Gage Gross won a title on Saturday night, you were probably like, oh, yeah, maybe I kind of saw that one coming.
Yeah. It made Waylon feel a little bit better for sure.
Yeah,
there you go.
Roger Flegge's match schedule this year, you guys wrestle a tough team schedule, and I think Roger just always ended up, if you look at if you made a top 7 list of the toughest opponents, Roger's top 7 list is immensely impressive.
Yeah. I mean, between his Chatfield opponent, whose name is Polakowski, I think he wrestled him twice this year. Birdie Shaw in the semifinals of state. Kale Quaintance in our duel against Marathon, returning state champ. Newbert in the finals of the Duffy loses to Weigel in the semifinals at Bi-State. Yeah, you're right. Like it seemed like every duel, that we were at, he was wrestling the other kid's best team. And luckily Roger's one of our best wrestlers and a lot of times came out on top, not always obviously, but and down in at the Donnybrook, boy, he wrestled a kid from Montini that we actually from that match kind of stole a ride that kid used, and we started kind of practicing that in our room and kind of made it our own a little bit. And we just call it the Montini ride now. And he held Roger down, and Roger doesn't get held down a lot. And Roger got rolled out, I think, the whole third period against that kid in the 5th place match. So
I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit, Deke. And if you have anything between this point and the Duffy, feel free to hop in. Well, you had the quad. We talked about the quad a little bit at the start, where huge duel between some of the top D3 teams in the state. And then West Salem also made the trip and towed the line. You guys came away 3-0 at that. Of course, a little bit of a Teams Day preview, as we'll come to find out. Yep. Got to jump ahead to the Holman duel. Got to ask about that, because that's I think looking at the lineup, Steve had the box score written up. I was taking a look at it. That we just knew that was going to be a grind 'em out affair for both teams, and that's really, I think Aquinas and Holman has become one of the better rivalries this decade.
Yeah, a ton of respect for Holman. When I took over, Loloff was head coach, and another good friend of mine, a college teammate of mine. So, I look at it this way, like even when we were getting beat up by them, like we were blessed to be able to wrestle them, because we knew that in order for us to be successful, we were going to have to raise ourselves to their level, not hope that they come down to ours, because that wasn't going to happen. So that was a big motivating factor for me as a coach was, hey, we got to keep getting better until we can compete with just the teams in our conference, it finally came along. And so they got great kids. Their kids are great. They wrestle at the same clubs that my kids do. And, a lot of these guys are friends with each other. So ton of respect for that program. So good duel. And again, I thought we lost, maybe -1 match. I thought we lost really well. Peter White only gave up a decision to a kid that teched him in the first period at Bi-State. Lincoln went out and I think gave up a decision to Brock Needham, state runner-up, really good kid, great wrestler. And so I thought we didn't get all the matchups we wanted, and that's just the way that duels go sometimes. Holman wrestled well, but I wasn't disappointed with how we wrestled. I thought that we actually wrestled well. It just wasn't our night. Holman beat us and was the better team that night.
I know it's a true rivalry, and I have to give you guys your community props, Deke, because Holman is a large school. It fits 1,200 people in the bleachers, and the Blue Gold faithful pack that side of the gym.
Nice.
Yeah, we have great fans. That's one thing that has built, I think, with our own team culture is like our fans. Like we have alumni that come to our meets. We've got people that graduated 20 years ago, 30 years ago that come to our meets. They'll pull me aside afterwards. I had some handwritten notes before we went to Team State from people that I had never heard from before, but were Aquinas alums. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support that we get from our friends, families, and fans.
The last regular season question I have, and you can talk more on anything if you want, but man, what is in the water in lacrosse, aside from a lot of the minerals, because I do know it's hard water. But you guys are 5 deep at heavyweight every year, it seems like. I know during the year there was a week where your backup beat the Boyceville state place winner, and that same weekend your third string guy was a finalist at JV state. How do you handle all that, Deacon? Even more importantly, how do you keep them all out, especially when Tyson is at the top of the depth chart?
Yeah. It's honestly it's not easy. It's a little bit, I would say, like the Ryan Allen, and me at UWL, but we'll talk about Chase Shams. He beat the Boyceville heavyweight. Great athlete. Great heavyweight. I think he ended up taking 3rd at state or 4th. Chase, and that was no fluke. Chase actually beat him the year before too, at the Dells duels, and we knew what we had to Chase. Like when he beat him, like I wasn't surprised. Like we know Chase and we knew he was going to be really good. And it's just unfortunate that, for him, that Timar moved up. He's, I would call him a generational heavyweight type of kid. And I think you just keep him motivated. You let him know that you love him and you need him still. Like their role and their value are two different things. His role was to be a great practice partner and a great teammate, but his value was unmeasurable. Like his value to the team was greater than his role, right? Like he provided great leadership. He was a great kid. He was a great practice partner for Timar. He was a dislocated elbow away from being the guy, like Timar got injured last year at state. And that I told him that, I said, you're one injury away from being the guy and being a podium guy this year. And Joe Korger, runner up at JV State, he's all of 285 pounds. And, his big motivation is to get better for football. And we brought him to a varsity tournament at the end of the year, which he won. He won the Cash tournament. And so he loves wrestling. He loves being part of the team. And actually, our state qualifier from last year didn't come out, and so it was unfortunate that he didn't. And I probably didn't do my job as a coach, getting him to understand that his value is worth more than his role. And that I probably failed as a coach there, that I didn't express that to him, because I do think wrestling would have helped him. He's moving on. He's going to play football in college at UND, and a great kid, still love him.
Can you imagine those shark bait drills? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And again, like sometimes I got to remind myself in practice not to be a fan. Like I got to coach these guys up still, but those goals are fun to watch for sure. So
that's golden. I got to use that for my own track coaching. Yeah. Your role is different than your value.
That is good.
I love, yeah. Deke, anything else for you for the regular season before we hop into the postseason action here?
No, I'm glancing at it, some good quality teams, Mineral Point, always well coached.
Well, I just got to make a comment on that, because the match of the century occurred at Mineral Point, and I got to witness it. It was one of the greatest spectacles in sports I've ever got to see. So obviously, great duel. You guys wrestled. You said you didn't. I said it too. I mean, Mineral Point is a great team going down there, great atmosphere. But when Timar wrestled Ryan Shale, that was I literally. When it was over, I was crying. Scott Schmitz is just smiling away. And I got to know, did Tyson know that was – I didn't think he knew what was happening. I thought he was going to get his forfeit. He probably knew that. I thought – I was saying to Scott Schmitz, I'm like, I don't think he knew it was going to happen. Did he have an idea that was going to happen?
He knew, yeah. So Curtis asked me at Wayne's, he goes, hey, do you got anybody that would want to wrestle this young man? And kind of gave me his backstory. And I told him – and I was honest. I'm like, I got 10 guys that would do that. And he goes, what about Tyson? And I said, that's an awesome idea. I said, he would absolutely love to do that. And it was funny that Ryan stepped off the scale. And I think Curtis told him who he was going to go wrestle and pointed Timar out. He's hard to miss, big blonde hair. And I looked at Ryan. I said, hey, go up to him and flex. And so he walked right up to Timar, put a big flex up in front of him. And, our whole team's got a big kick out of it. And, so I did, like doing what Timar did, like, again, I wasn't surprised. Like, as great of a wrestler as he is, he is a better human being. So,
well, Ryan or Tyson, when he got pinned and he put his hands up over his head and watching Ryan, and it shows you the how great of a kid Ryan is as well, because he deeply felt for Timar and went over and helped him up. And I was like, man, that was just. I'm just literally crying thinking about it. It was that I'm so glad I got to see that live.
Yeah, Timar might win an Emmy for his acting, so he did a good job. So, but yeah, that was a ton of fun, great to see, and again, not surprised, and ton of respect for the Mineral Point community and their fans and their wrestlers as well, for that. So they gave Timar a lot of love after that.
And I know respect to you guys. I know sometimes like. Timar is the product of he's probably going to receive forfeits and duels at times, and took it like a champ, especially it was his 150th win, and to come back around and do that, I think that was probably more important than a lot of wins he'll have in his career.
Yeah, I told him, I said, hey, this kind of puts things in perspective about what's really important, and he agreed. And it certainly puts things in perspective when you see things like that.
The flex before the match, that adds. Ryan knows no fear.
Oh.
All right, you guys, you got me misty-eyed here. Yeah, The mineral point duel was great. I think it speaks again, Deke, to you talk about the strength of your schedule, and I like. I mean, 14 events is a lot, so that you have your 11 events, you get what you need out of it. You head into the postseason. I think that's something good for coaches to, especially if a newer coach is building a schedule. You don't need to try to get to 14.
Yeah. You don't need to try to get to 50, in my opinion. Our last regular season competition was January 28th. And that's close to 2.5 weeks from individual sectionals. So we use that time to heal if we're dinged up at all, and then I give them some time away from the mat. So the day after we wrestled Holman, we went bowling. And then we came back on Monday, Tuesday the next week and had some good training sessions and had some kind of our last really hard practices. I gave them Wednesday off. And then we came back Thursday and Friday that week and had another couple good training sessions. And then that next week we went 5 straight days, so having 2 weekends off in a row, I think is really big, just more mentally than physically.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes late in the season when you've had the schedule like we've had, it's good to take a little time off and away from the mat. And your better kids are going to find places to wrestle. A lot of my guys go up to Law on Sundays, but I do think that's why we wrestle fresher in the postseason, than if we had maybe scheduled an extra tournament or something, later on. I did schedule one in the last weekend of January, but only for some JV guys and like my guys like Lincoln, who was injured early in the season, just to get some more matches too. So.
Deke, heading into the postseason, sectionals at Brookwood. We have the new postseason format, and I had a theory when Steve and I had to do like 12 hours of commentary, so I think we came up with a lot of theories at that point. But is there a different feel not having regionals and just going right into like this is the qualifying tournament? Because I thought about the fact that guys have to have a higher sense of urgency right away. This isn't like, oh, you can take a lost regional semis, wrestle back, just make it to the next weekend. It's, A, you have to win your first round match, and then B, you cannot lose early or your fate is in another person's hand. Does not having regionals kind of change that sense of urgency for you guys?
I if it does, my guys didn't show it. And again, we didn't approach it any different. This is going to be kind of a boring interview.
Just another tournament.
Yeah. It's just the next thing. You make a good point though. Like that first round, like if you are a lower seed, you got to wrestle really well. Otherwise you're done. Like you're not moving on. And with even the possibility of wrestling back to try and, make it to state or score some team points for you, some important team points there. I would say I would be lying to say if my guys weren't thinking that, because I'm sure they were, but they didn't vocalize it. And, I think with how we wrestled, I don't think that they felt an extra added sense of pressure or anything like that either.
Well, big props to you guys because you did go, whether it was buys or not, you went 14-0 in the first round.
Yeah, and we had some big wins. Like we had some lower seeded guys beat. I think we had like a 10 beat a 7. Some guys with some losing records won in that first round. So, but yeah, we came out hot at individual sectionals for sure. Any
other notes? We all know individual sectionals is an absolute emotional roller coaster. So, any match of note, any thoughts on wrestlers, anything like that from sectionals at Brookwood?
Yeah, I mean, I think people ask me like, hey, how many do you think you'll get through? And I said, if we wrestle to par, I think we should get 5 through. If we wrestle really great, and or catch some breaks, that happens sometimes. I think we can get 8 through, and we got 6 through. And it wasn't because of a lack of not wrestling well. It just, I think of a guy like Jacob Penscover at 150. He's a freshman for us, and he wrestled Mason Hurd twice early in the season. First time he got pinned, second time he lost 7-0, and he lost just an absolute heartbreaker. He was in on the winning takedown, and got to give Mason Hurd credit. He had some really stingy defense, and the second that we put our hip to the mat, he stepped over and secured the takedown instead of us getting it. And then Mason ended up losing to Brewer from Riverdale in the finals, and so we didn't get a wrestle back there. So my heart broke for Jacob because he, I think, had shown so much growth, and we felt like he could place. And while I was disappointed for him, I think team state for him kind of vindicated his if people didn't know who Jacob Penscover was because he didn't make it to state, I think they knew who he was after team state. Like he had some really nice wins for us, and not just wins, but like dominating wins against some really good kids. So your heart breaks for those kids. Peter White took third. We kind of thought he had a shot, and then Griffin Wisniewski ended up moving down from 13 to 6, at weigh-ins, and kind of had sealed that spot up. And Pete took third, and we're expecting big things from him next year. But overall, I was really, really happy with how we wrestled. So every guy scored points for us there. Every guy won at least a match. I think that was really important to get us feeling good about ourselves heading into team sections the following weekend.
Credit to, I know he didn't wrestle Wineski, but credit to Griffin, man. Wow, what a second half of the season that dude had.
Yeah, yep. That young man came to wrestle, boy, at the state tournament. He flawlessly in the semifinals and in the finals. Like he wasn't mistake free, but he was pretty darn close to being mistake free wrestling. He put together 2 really good, semifinals and finals matches for himself. So.
Steve-O, anything else on individual sectionals?
No, I was looking over. I'm excited for the team sectional commentary here.
I am also excited for the team sectional commentary. And Deke, I consider us, I would say we're friends at this juncture. And This is the media dramatic side of me. Coming into team sectionals with this decade, was there like an air over team sectionals at all, or was this just another tournament again?
No,
I think coming into this year, it's still like a boogeyman that we're looking to slay.
Yeah. Our language to our kids didn't change. Nothing changed.
Yep.
Just the next thing. And and again, like you say that, but I think the kids know different. I think they believed. I think after our quad, they started believing that we were going to mix. But Iowa Grants had our number, man. Those guys, I think the last 2 years now, they knocked us out at sectionals. And you guys are going to have to do a little fact checking here. But I think, and obviously sectionals were different this year, not because they changed a little bit. But I think our sectional has won D3 team state since 2019, 2018.
It would be 20. I think Coleman won in 2020. And then.
Wasn't it Mineral Point that COVID year?
Mineral Point won COVID year, and then Fenimore, Mineral Point. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we knew if we got just out of the sectional, like that we were going to be in the mix for the team state. And Ryan came up to me like he has several years. Like, I don't know if we got what it takes to beat you guys.
You're like,
year.
Shut up, Ryan.
Exactly. It was probably a little more colorful, and I can talk to him that way because we're friends. And I think the duel started at 175 with Hinderman, and we actually weighed in Marcus Clark, who had qualified for state for the first time, at 165. We weighed him in at 175 to try and get him away from Bussy and Hinderman, and it happened to work out with the way the flip worked. We were able to bump him up to 90, and he got us going by beating their state qualifier, a really quality kid. And then Isaac had a really big win for us at 215 in the last probably 10 seconds, secured a takedown to win. And I think those 2 wins got us fired up and got us going, got us kind of sprinting towards the victory after that point. So, but the Iowa Grant kids that went out and wrestled, they don't quit. Man, those guys keep moving forward and grinding it. They're just like Ryan. Like I'm a big believer that teams kind of take on the personality of their coach. And Iowa Grant kids are tough. They're mean, but they're not flagrant about it. They just wrestle hard and mean, and that's just how I remember Ryan wrestling, and I think they kind of take on his attitude. I got a ton of respect for that program and those kids.
After that win against Iowa Grant Highland, did you? I mean, first time going to team state, did it feel like there was a little weight lifted off of you, Deke?
Yes, certainly a monkey off the back. It was. I would say relief was the right word. I got to finally do this big exhale, we finally made it. We finally got through, and it was a good feeling. I told the boys, I said, hey, I'm gonna feel really good about this for the next 24 hours, but on Monday we're gonna come back in, and then we got to focus on individual state and keep getting better before team state. So, and this was new for us too, because now all 30 of our guys were practicing all the way through team state, which hadn't happened, since I've been here, and that was a great experience for everybody. And honestly, now my backup's got 2 more weeks to wrestle, and get better, So I think that's an advantage for us for next year as well.
I do think it's fitting and it's kind of full circle that IGH was your duel to win to get to team state.
It does. I was just thinking that as well. And just knowing that it was at Cashton, because that is where
my Lord,
Deke Fenwick's journalism career came to an end at Cashton High School.
Yeah. Hey, if you can, Teague, please just keep picking against us, because that seems to be working right now. So.
Do you remember that? Maybe you pushed that out of your head, but when I did the blog hyping up you guys versus Fenimore, and said if that duel doesn't happen, I'll quit wrestling media.
Yeah, and IGH knocked us up. We didn't get to Fenimore that year. So.
Who was it? Was it Brock up against Brady or something like that? That just, oh my Lord, yeah.
Heavyweight, I think we were pinning their kid, and then we ended up getting pinned, and that it was like the first match of the duel, and that was the duel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you guys had the dudes playing college football now. Flotmeyer
came out for 3 weeks. Yeah,
I'm impressed by Jackson to do what he did in 3 weeks.
Yeah, great young man. I was not surprised. Again, not surprised that he would do that. So,
going on before we do team state, individual state, and Deke, you guys. As a team, it seems like you guys have the Cole Center pretty well scouted, because it just seems like you guys wrestle well at the Cole Center. And I think I've come to learn you treat it like it's just another tournament. But I do have to say, is it a little harder with a group of high schoolers now? You're at state, like the mecca that everyone's looking to wrestle at. Is it hard to drill that message through to your kids, or did it help that this was kind of a veteran group?
Yeah, no, veteran group certainly helps. A lot of these guys have been down there before multiple times, and so they knew what was going on. They know how everything runs, so that certainly does help. I think too, like, we go back to our schedule, like going to the Donnybrook, wrestling at Bi-State, the Duffy, wrestling all those great duels. Like, my guys walked in, some of them with 4, 5, 6, and I think Wayland had 9 losses. Every time that we lost, I think we got better because of that. And I don't think my guys were intimidated or fazed by any of the other wrestlers or teams that were there. And we knew that there were some guys that were going to be better than us, and we stepped on the mat and we tried to come up with the best game plan possible to put us in a position to win a match late, whether it was with technique or just strategy. And to our guys' credit, they really wrestled, in those close matches, they wrestled almost flawlessly. In terms of strategy, I thought our guys did. Tyler Paulson comes to mind. First round, he beats a kid that beat him in the duel against Mineral Point. Second round, he knocks off Quaintance in overtime, right? And then he beats a really good kid in the third place match from Cedar Grove. So again, close matches, but that kid loves to wrestle. He is a student of the sport. He's really, really smart in terms of his wrestling IQ. And I think
Tyler. Related to Trevor?
Yep. Yeah. What's that? Did I say Trevor?
No, I said Tyler. Related to Trevor?
Yes.
Yes.
Brother. Yeah. Trevor
just a sophomore.
Yeah, just a soft. So, real high wrestling IQ and loves to wrestle. Like the day after team state, he was at a wrestling clinic. The next day, didn't take a day off, went to the wrestling clinic the next day, and he just loves to wrestle. But all of our guys, I thought, wrestled outstanding at the state tournament. Like, we could wrestle that 10 more times. And, I don't know if we do that well again, but I think, we kind of caught lightning in a bottle there a little bit with placing 5 of our 6 guys in the top 3.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think a big indicator, Martez sheared. And what I would say, Martez doesn't have a lot of 50-50 matches. I would say Liam Carey going in is a 50-50 match, and Martez kind of just made a statement away in that match.
Liam Carey, that kid is you talk about gamer, that kid's a gamer, and he is a tough out. That kid is a tough wrestler. Beat Martez in the duel. Only one of Martez lost twice. The other one was to a kid from Montini, down at the Donnybrook. So we knew that was going to be a great match. Martez is really good on his feet, but I think people sleep on his top work. He is so tough on top. He pins a lot of kids and a lot of really good kids. He runs a really nice bar half series. And I hope I'm not giving away his trade secrets here, but
I don't think it matters.
No, you're good.
I talk about his competitiveness in practice. When we go live, he never stops moving, and he is so hard to score on. And I think that last sequence was the epitome of how he wrestles in practice. We saw Liam Carey, I think, get to almost like standing rear behind him. And, Tez, he never quits in practice when he's competing and going live. And, when he hit that roll, and then got the kind of not a reversal, but got the takedown then, when most guys would have been dead to rights against Liam, I think Liam scores that 99 times out of 100 or maybe against anybody else. So, but Martez did a great job of continuing to wrestle through that sequence.
And your other state champion, Tyson Martin. I know all the wins, especially like the state championships, feel good, but man, Tyson's had to have felt just a little different because that's a dude. And I know the thing is, Tyson doesn't view his state championship win as a huge win. It's just another step in his, his walk of life. But for me, I was so happy to see him come out with an individual state title.
Yeah. We use the term relief after like qualifying for team state. I as a coach, I think I felt a sense of relief after that, just because I know how much time and effort he puts into honing his craft and how much he loves to wrestle. And I think he does downplay that a little bit, but in the same sense, I think it meant a lot to him to finally also get that monkey off his back. Although you would never know that talking to him or in any of his interviews that he gave afterwards. He's just so humble and he's got such a good perspective on wrestling. If anybody has watched like an interview with Yanni Diakomahalis, former Cornell four-time national champ, I feel like Tyson has got almost a viewpoint like that, where he just sees wrestling as a martial art and he's just testing himself against himself and wants to be the best that he can be. And, competition is just a way for him to measure himself, and whether he wins or loses, like, when he walked off against Trayshawn, right away, he's like, you know what? I got to get better. I got to get better with my shot defense. That was like the first thing he said, where most guys would have been maybe throwing a fit or feeling sorry for themselves. Like, he just has a really unique, positive perspective on wrestling that I wish more kids would have. I think they would enjoy wrestling more, just for the wrestling's sake versus like the winning and losing part of it.
That's awesome.
And I think very fitting too, again, I mean this fitting as a form of respect, but that his last match against Grant Matthews, and again, big shout out to Grant Matthews. I messaged his dad a little bit after, and the thing I love about Grant is I think he loves wrestling because of his friends, and his dad told me, he's like, we never wanted to put too much pressure on him. We don't want our kids to hate us, and he stuck it out. He felt relief once it was all done, but you know what? He did everything he could, and that was two guys that are class acts in their own ways, and the show of respect they had for each other at the end. I think it was just so emblematic of those two people. Like, it almost made me like emotional when I was calling it on air.
Teague, is Grant the ice fisherman? Is that the?
He's the one. Where his dad said, like, I think he'd rather be out fishing than at a tournament right now.
Yeah. Well, and going back to Tyson, Deke, I remember I was sitting next to you at Bi-State. I was trying to do Teague made me do phone video stuff, which was new for me. And I literally, my jaw hit the floor when you said, I just assumed watching Tyson on the football field, oh yeah, he's going to play football somewhere. He probably could have had his pick of the litter where he wanted to go. And when you said, nope, he absolutely loves wrestling, that was a surprise to me. But then I'm like, man, you just watch him wrestle and you can see his development. And I think he has a high ceiling when he goes to college yet. We haven't seen the best of him yet.
Yep. No, I think we're going to be watching him on TV here in a couple of years at the NCAAs. I firmly believe that he's a student of the sport. We talked about a high wrestling IQ for Tyler, and Tyson is as smart and as analytical about himself as any kid I've ever had the pleasure of coaching. He really critiques himself hard. And the thing about him is, like, he searches out the best practice partners, best competitions on his own. Like, he drives across the state to find great practice partners. And again, he's an anytime, anywhere time kind of guy. He wasn't the first pick for that, King of Wisconsin duel that they held. And then I think Leisking backed out, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, and they called Timer up. He's like, on a 2 days notice, he's like, absolutely, wanted to wrestle Grulke. We were hoping to see him at the Highlander. Unfortunately, that got canceled, but I think he was really looking forward to that match and was excited. He was down at D3 Nationals the night before and drove through the night in that snowstorm and made it to Kettle Moraine and wrestled well. So
Wow, nice. Well, hey, Teague, good opportunity for my second trivia question. Are you done with individual? Because this can be a good transition to team state.
That's a good question for Deke. Deke, are you done with individual?
Yeah, no, I'm done with individual. Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
Deke, congratulations. It was a great weekend at individual state for you guys. We know the journey's not done yet, so we're going to take a quick break for this team state coverage.
Actually,
all right.
I apologize. So
Yep.
I got to talk about Roger Flaggy. I'm going to follow up with him at team state too. But he was so dominant, a good chunk of the year, except for like the absolute best kids, losing to Newbert, losing down at the Donnybrook. He had a couple losses down there, and was dominant on his run to the state finals. And, that Busan is very good. I watched some film on him. I'm like, this kid, where did this kid come from? We was undefeated going into state, and I'm like, this kid is flying under the radar. But I felt like, without saying it to Roger, I felt like this kid was one of the best kids in the state. And I think we saw that then at the King of Wisconsin the following weekend. I think he wrestle Immel was from Key Austin. Yeah. I mean, and 12-5 score, looked really good doing it. We game planned. I thought we had a nice game plan walking into that. And I don't know if my heart has ever broken for somebody more after Roger lost that match, just because that kid turned over every stone, took advantage of every opportunity to get better, and still fell short of his goal. And I told the newspaper, I was like, it's almost like a death in the family. Like I think it affected him that much, where he was pretty tore up for a little while, and he would tell you the same thing. And so I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here, but that young man was the heartbeat of our team this year. Let our warm-ups. I don't lead warm-ups. I don't do any of that. My captains do, my seniors do. And Roger was that guy for us this year. He got our guys going. He policed the team if they needed to be policed. And he really was a heartbeat of our team. So that was a heartbreak for him. But I think and I hope that winning that team state title, I think, kind of put a little bit of salve on those wounds for him, and he got to leave a champion. So and he's a champion anyways, in my mind. So
and I'd say, Deke, for how Roger must have been feeling during that week, you wouldn't have known otherwise seeing him at team state. So that speaks to the type of person he is. Steve, trivia.
Oh yeah. Hey, so here it is. So Teague, and I'm going to throw a softball to you. You ready for it?
Yep.
Aquinas has 7 individual state champions. Can you name them?
Martez, Tyson, Moline,
yes.
Hargrove.
Yes.
Nope.
Oh, because he lost to Stelt. That's right. Yeah. All right. Fitzpatrick. So I got 4.
Well, you got Timar and you got
Timar, Sheard.
Yep. And then you got David.
Yep. Moline. Fitzpatrick.
You got Fitzpatrick.
I don't think I'm missing an upperweight guy.
We have 5 state champions that have won 7 titles.
Yes, that's the. Wait, did David win 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And who else won 2, Teague?
Oh, it has to be Fitzpatrick.
Fitzy
won 2.
Yep.
We were missing you're missing the guy that was a one-timer. He just gave me this haircut today.
Wait, who?
Yeah. Pinky.
No,
it wasn't Pinky because he lost to
2023 at 152 pounds.
Oh my lord! Oh, it's older Flaggy, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tate.
Yeah, yep. I saw him today. He gave me the haircut today. Gave me the fresh cut. Hit him up on Instagram at Tate's Trims. Give him a like.
Tate's Trims, everyone. You heard it here first. That's wow. All recent. Wow. Even the names I met. Yeah. Wow, that's
Tate's
a lot
Trims.
of talent.
You'll have to put the little icon or whatever, the emblem on the podcast.
Also an All-American for UWL. Took 5th this year, so at 184. So he hit a growth spurt in college. I think graduated at 57 and wrestled 184 right now, and looks good. Look like put on some muscle. So
So all those champs then in the last 5 years. Yeah, I was wondering if I missed someone.
The first one was
that,
22, right? Fitz was the first one.
Yep.
This is WIAA era. This is 1999 and up.
Steve, my trivia question for you, and I think, Deke should know this one.
Oh, great.
But Aquinas went to the Duffy.
Okay.
If Deke wanted to take the Blue Golds on just one highway from La Crosse to Port Washington, what highway could he have taken?
Oh, my gosh. Well, Teague, as a geographical expert of the state of Wisconsin, that would be Interstate 94.
Nope. Deke, do you know what highway it is?
Wait, are you talking? Wait, hold on. Highway or interstate? Oh,
Not
you're
interstate.
talking. Oh,
Is it 27 that runs across the state?
No. Let's go 33, Teague.
33. Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we're taking probably an extra hour and a half, I think.
It would. It'd be a beautiful drive. But...
Yeah, probably hit a few deer on the way too.
I apologize. I thought you were talking interstate. So highway. Gotcha.
All right. That's what I got. So,
All right.
man, that is a stacked list. Flaky, Fitz, Martin, Sheard, Moline. Man. And how many of them, I think all of the grads were at Team State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So UWL wrestling team, their team was like the escorts for all the teams. And so thankfully Malachek assigned us Joe and Tate. So that was pretty special getting those guys down on the floor because with their teams, with Joe's team and Tate, when Joe was a senior, that was the year we tied Fenimore in the team section final and lost on like the 5th criteria or something. And so that was a heartbreaking loss back then. So it was nice that those guys were down on the floor right on our bench and got to share that with us. I gave both those guys a big hug and, they were a big part of our culture change. And, it wasn't just this team, but all those teams that came before that, shifted that culture change and just got us to where we are today. So they're as much a part of it as the current wrestlers are.
And I think we're all 0% shocked that David made the trip to watch.
Yeah. How special was that? He actually just texted me. Yeah, he's on spring break next week. Wants to grab a meal. So I'll buy him lunch or breakfast at some time when he's back for spring break.
David's such a good dude. Yeah.
One of the best. One of the best.
There.
All right, Deke, speaking of Team State.
Yeah, preseason, I thought going in, Aquinas is number 1. I don't think there was ever a doubt. Were you surprised? Was that were you surprised? Is this 5? Were you the 5 seed or 4 seed?
5 seed.
The hardest hitting question we'll have all night, Deke. How'd you feel about the 5 seed?
To say I was surprised would probably be an understatement, and I was just a little confused. And so I called Loloff, and we had a good conversation. He kind of squared me away, and after that, I was like, "Yeah, we got the 5 seed." Like we, just the way that the seeding is done, I understood it. There's no team factor that's a part of it. There's like no team. The fact that we beat WIAA in marathon and Shiocton in duels prior, had no bearing on seeding. It's all, they kind of go through your lineup and they compare you to, they compare your 106 pounder to all the other 7 106 pounders that are at state. And then you get a point based on if his individual criteria would beat the other team's 106.
Yep.
And they go through the lineup and, in the way it worked out, the way that I had sent my team in, was, we were the 5 seed and we earned it. That's just the nature of the beast. But what the seeding can't measure is how much you can move guys, your depth. They can't measure that stuff. And that's obviously certainly played a role for us in our ability to move guys around and where we weighed guys in at, compared to where maybe they weighed in for individual sectionals and state.
Because you did not wrestle your lineup straight up, I think, in any duel.
None of the duels.
Okay, yeah. Now that we got that question out of the way, now we can talk to wrestling.
Oh. Was I not supposed to ask that, T?
No, because I wanted to ask it too, so I asked it.
Well,
yeah.
I hope I did it diplomatically.
Yeah.
I didn't say what the hell,
Yeah.
No, I tell you what, we ended up in a good spot in the bracket, and as a coach, what a great opportunity to use some chalkboard material. It kind of lit a fire under our guys a little bit. I think they, I didn't use the term disrespect, but I think they might have, if they did, I didn't hear it, but they certainly seemed motivated that week of practice going into it, and they were fired up and ready to go. So I thought we fell in a really good spot in the bracket, just with the timing of weigh-ins and who we were wrestling when, and it certainly did work out in our favor.
Well, and I know Teague told me that he's told you afterwards, or after round one or whatever, round two, I can't remember, but I told Teague off air. Maybe actually Teague, I might have said it on air when we were doing the broadcast. Deke, and I'm going to tell you this: we've covered, you obviously we've gone down to team sectionals and we've covered you numerous times. This is the absolute best, most fired up, most intense I have ever seen your team wrestle in all aspects of it. And and you talked about it already before. This is the best team wrestling I've ever seen you guys do, and that was not giving up points or getting those extra bonus points and just wrestling all the way through the whistle. So whatever you did to get those guys ready, and I know it was just, hey, this match is no bigger than any other one. Yeah. I'm kind of going wink, wink there, right? But I thought whatever you did for preparation on this, you did awesome. You guys looked fantastic.
Yeah, I thought we came out hot against Marathon, and we wrestled really great against those guys, from the get-go. And I think the big matchup that we knew was going to happen after that, and I think everybody in the lacrosse center knew too, was going to be the semifinals on Saturday morning. And I was glad it started where it did, because I knew Pete was going to have a shot against that young man, who is a great wrestler in his own right. And Pete had really been wrestling really well at individual sectionals. He looked great. He wrestled Schramm in a really good match in the semifinals and lost a close one. And Schramm's a great little wrestler for Riverdale. And so we knew he was peaking at the right time and had improved a lot. And, we had a game plan for him. He stuck to it. He listened really well. And, we didn't want him to win it in overtime. Obviously, we were trying to win it in regulation, but I think he had a locked hands and, a penalty point in there too, but got that takedown in overtime, and that got us, sprinting towards that win. I think he fired us up emotionally. They did follow up with a few pins in a row, but then, we turned around and got some of our own between Martez and Tyler Paulson had a big pin against one of their better kids. So I thought that middle stretch of our lineup did a good job. And I'm going to talk about Waylon Hargrove here. He took a loss to Colin Ham in the semifinals at state, and I think it was 1 point short of getting tacked. I think he lost by 14 at state. And the fact, and I told him to go, I said, wrestle to win. I said, wrestle to win this match. Let's score early and let's get up on him. And Waylon is excellent on top. And I said, let's get on top and let's wear him out. And Waylon got that first takedown. He rode him for a while. And I think that just kind of changed the tempo of the match. And while we still lost, and Ham is a fantastic wrestler. That kid might go down in history as one of Wisconsin greats. He's on track to win 3, potentially be a 4-time state finalist. I'm not trying to jinx the young man here, but he's a great wrestler. But the fact that Waylon kept that to a decision, again, I think if you would have looked at our sideline, you might have thought that we won that match after that was over. I think everybody on our sideline, knew that we had to kind of keep that match to a decision in order for us to still be in the hunt later. And
that was huge.
Yeah. Huge. Yep. And then, I think about a guy like Marcus Clark, we bumped him up to 190 almost all weekend. Here's a guy who honestly walks around at probably 164 in his street clothes during the week, was cutting 0 weight this year. And so he had to eat to get up to 175, especially with the allowance, and then wrestled 190 all weekend. And we bumped Isaac Miller up to 215 in all of our duels. And again, we asked those guys to lose by decision. They did a great job at that. Isaac, especially, a light 190 going up against guys who are almost 30 pounds heavier than him. Super proud of his effort as well. And Marcus is, again, a great leader, true team guy. He's probably my best case second coach that I have of high schoolers that stay and help out. Again, just a great young man, great human being, and wrestles so hard. Our guys truly love each other. I think they truly love each other. They love being around each other, and you can see it in their wrestling at Team State, just how much they fought for each other.
Real quick note on the marathon duel. How nice was it that you did not have to let the duel come down to the Underwood brothers at the end?
Yeah, I mean, if that duel would have been within 12 or less, I knew we were going to be in trouble, right? So, and talking about the Underwoods, what great kids. Their dad is a stand-up guy, a great coach. He had a great senior class this year. They're just outstanding young men as well. And I honestly, I felt bad forfeiting into them. And when they came through the line, I stopped and talked to those guys. I said, hey, it's no disrespect to you guys. I said I would have felt like an idiot if I sent my guy out to wrestle and he came off with a broken finger or something, inadvertently, and we wouldn't have been able to wrestle. We're not real deep down there, and so I wanted to keep my guys healthy, and they understood. There was no hard feelings. Those guys like, yep, we get it, coach, and so a ton of respect to the Underwood family.
Well, and I did notice Deacon, huge sign of respect for you is that when Blake came out, obviously that was Blake's last match, right? He's probably going on to, I don't know where he's officially going on to wrestle, but I noticed you went to the table specifically to shake Blake's hand and tell him, hey, listen, this is what's up. But I just thought that was a great class act and a great sign of respect for him.
Yeah, great kid. And I like I said, I felt terrible not wrestling against him, but I had to do what was right by my team in that moment. And, any other situation we would have wrestled them, but just not that one.
I went ahead. So why we get before talking about the final duel, sheared at 32. What was the rationale behind it? Obviously, it worked out, but
yeah, we just felt like matchup wise, that was the best chance for us getting bonus at those weights, and we knew we were going to try and slide Tyler away from their 38 pounder. Please forgive me, his name escapes me. Tyler wrestling. Who's that?
Bus?
Yeah. No, not Bus. Bus wrestles for WIAA.
I'm sorry. What weight are you talking?
38 for Cedar Grove, right? Are you talking about WIAA or are you talking about
Cedar Grove? Yeah, Carson Voskel.
Voskel, yes, Carson Voskel. Yep. So we Tyler beat Voskel in a very tight match at state. I think we won by 6-2, some score like that. But it was a close match. And we felt like we could get bonus with Tyler up a weight. And Lincoln, who had kind of an injury-shortened season, the one thing about Lincoln, and he's a tough kid to pin. Lincoln, if he does get turned, he fights his rear end off to fight off his back. He understood what was in line for the team, and he went out against Vosco basically with the instructions like, hey, wrestle smart, let's keep it on our feet, time up, hand fight well, keep your feet moving. And to Vosco's credit, he got on top and he turned Lincoln left and right. And to Lincoln's credit, he kept fighting his rear end off and didn't give up a pin. And I think that got our guys fired up as well when he came off that mat. He was a little beat up. I think he had a bloody nose about 4 different times. But he
didn't give up 6.
Did give up 6. And I think it's as big as that is for the point total. I think it's better. It's almost even bigger emotionally for your team. When you have something like that happen, Peter White going against their really good 13 pounder, one of those brothers that they've got down there, and securing the last takedown to keep it to a decision instead of a major, because up to that point it was a major, and when he secured that takedown, it brought it back to a decision. So again, emotionally, that makes a big deal for your team. And then bumping Tyler up, we slid him up to 44, Roger up to 50, Jacob up to 57. We knew if we could secure bonus there, we could send Whalen out at 165 instead of against Race at 175. And if Whalen pinned, which we were confident he could do, then that would seal the duel for us, knowing we had Timar at heavyweight. We were kind of obviously not saying it's an automatic bonus, but we felt
you feel confident with a Timar at the end of the line, which
that
worked out perfectly for you guys in the semis and finals. Like it's like a little cushion.
But you're feeling pretty good, Coach, when it comes down to Tyson Martin winning a match in the end.
There's not a better closer in high school wrestling in Wisconsin. So.
Before closing off the Cedar Grove Belgium duel, I should have asked this at the start, but man, how pumped were you that the team state got to be in La Crosse? I was very excited.
Awesome event. I tell you what, like the field house was special. Like I think we can all agree on that. Like tight venue, like everybody's on top of each other in those steep stands. But the WIAA knocked it out of the park. Mel Dow and Jason Loloff put on a great event, with the lights and the music and the entrance in the finals, like the Onalaska Drum Corps. I thought they did a great job and really brought a lot of energy to it. And the La Crosse Center, afterwards I said, is big enough where it's comfortable, but small enough where it's intimate. And I felt like that was a nice description, like where it felt really intimate. Your fans were right on top of you still, but it was big enough where everybody was still comfortable.
Yeah, I joke with everyone that I enjoyed it because of my drive, but I think it ended up knowing who was behind the production value, I knew they were going to knock it out of the park, and it was awesome. I loved it.
And I don't think you can overemphasize the home field advantage of like putting your head on your own pillow at night. We got to practice on our own facility all week, and the day of the meet, to roll around a little bit. So it went really well. So I it was nice having it at home.
Deke, in this Cedar Grove Belgium duel, I feel not that this ended the duel right away, but things seemed promising right away with White and Heimerman. Like when Peter only gave up 3, bumping up, which is Pete's a good wrestler.
Huge.
Yeah.
But Heimerman, as I learned this week, is a bonus point machine. So nothing was off the table. That felt like a huge win in itself, and your crowd's reaction showed it.
Yeah, while it wasn't a win in the win column for Pete, and I've watched that video. I've gone back and watched it. When you see our bench, you would have swore we won that match or Pete won that match. Like, our guys were fired up. We knew what was on the line there. And he got to start us off against WIAA Fremont. He was a spark for us there, and he did the same thing against Cedar Grove Belgium against an excellent kid. Bumping up weights, for, I would say, the middle and heavyweights isn't as big of a deal. But when you're a 106 pounder, bumping up, I'm sure Heimerman was probably weighing at 117 or 118. You're talking about 8 pounds. It's almost 10% of their body weight. It's I think it's more difficult to do when you're a lightweight than it is for like a middle or a heavier weight guy to do that in terms of just strength and body size. But Pete's tough. I coached him in middle school football, and he was my center. And so it gives you a little bit of an idea of his toughness and how gritty he is, and maybe how slow he is. He's not the fastest footed guy. Otherwise, I probably would have put him at cornerback or safety. But
snap the ball and just I can just see him rifling out there and just like
and blocking through the whistle. He was a blocking through the whistle machine.
Oh, that's awesome.
Again, I just keep having all these questions pop up. I'm rusty from the last year, Steve. We haven't done these in a year, but how much different is it recruiting-wise or scouting-wise with 8 teams in a bracket? Like, how'd you go about the scouting? It's not like you can scout all 7 teams fully in depth, because that's a lot to truly do, but how do you game? Obviously, Sheared at 32 worked out in all 3 duels. How do you game plan your lineup, and I don't know. What do you try to plan for? How do you go about planning for wrestling 3 duels against potentially 7 different teams?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, so I've had a coach here at Aquinas. His name's Eric Smith. He's coached with me for my whole 18 years. He started as a high school assistant of mine, and now he has done my middle school for many, many years. And he kind of takes a little bit of that burden off of me. He does a lot of scouting for me. And obviously, we knew we were going to wrestle marathon. We had a really good idea we were going to wrestle WIAA. And he was confident that Cedar Grove was going to come out of the bottom side. And obviously, Auburndale had different plans. That duel came down to heavyweight, and I think could have gone either way. So, we were scouting marathon. Obviously, their weights had changed. And it's hard, too, because you don't really know where they're going to weigh guys in at. Like, you have to kind of anticipate what other teams are going to do. Like, I put myself in Coach Underwood's. I'm like, okay, if I'm Coach Underwood, how am I going to beat Aquinas? And where am I going to weigh guys in at? And they did it perfect. Like, they covered those upper weights really well. They weighed in both Salber and Sonnentag, I think, at 75, so they could wrestle them at 75 and 90. And Stencil, I think, weighed in at 65. And so that I would have done the same thing to beat us. And so he was really smart in doing that. So we kind of had to anticipate where those other teams were going to weigh guys in at. And then the same thing with Ham. Like, Ham wrestled 57 at state. We felt like they were going to weigh him in at 65, which I believe they did. And so we had at least anticipated correct. But sometimes you guess and you're wrong. It just so happened that we kind of guessed and we were right. And then we made adjustments to what we thought that they were going to do and weighed guys in at certain weights. Owen Skemp, I talked about him earlier at the Dells duels. He walks around at 155, and he had to qualify for 175. And so he had to drink above the 157 weight limit, which was at the day 2 was 162, 63. And so, he was eating and drinking it was probably harder than losing weight, was trying to gain the weight that he had to gain for us. So, So it is a lot of scouting, but there's only so much you can plan for. Ultimately, you just got to go out and wrestle too. So.
I think I'm running out of questions here. I
That's
think
it.
might
Yeah.
just be that time. I mean, we are at that time. How did it feel when a Timar got the win and you guys clinched the duel? You won your first WIAA team state title, Coach Stanek.
Yeah. Honestly, a lot like it felt like after I grant, like a sense of relief, just like, again, monkeys off our back. We've been right at the cusp of qualifying and getting to team state for so many years and just haven't been able to seal the deal for a variety of reasons. It seems like it was almost like something different every year. And we finally were able to put it together. So a sense of relief, and then a sense of gratitude right away. Grateful that I get to coach these young men at a high level like that. They are some high character kids. And I was really grateful to coach them, grateful to coach alongside the coaches that were with me this year. I've had some outstanding assistants in my whole tenure here, and this year was no different. I had some longtime assistants in Jane Van Manen, who does an awesome job with our guys and is a great technician. And then we had some real young guys from UWL, Cameron Denny from Marshfield, so like a winning culture there. Matthew Haldeman from Milton, you talk about a winning culture. There's another one. Sam Schutz, originally a local kid, but then went to Luxembourg Casco when his mom got the superintendent job there.
From
So you're talking
CSC to
about
LC.
Marshfield, Milton, so those guys all brought, a winning mindset. And, I think it rubbed off on our guys as well. So.
And one moment, Steve, you told me about this moment, so I'm sorry for kind of taking your thunder here. But one moment that Steve brought up that made me really happy to hear. But there was a moment after the duel was done. We were waiting for the Holman-Kakana duel to end, and you were hanging out with Erica, just kicked back in the bleachers, and Steve said you were just seemed like you were light as a feather, just smiling and chatting. Do we get to hear about any of that conversation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was looking for her up in the stands, and I'm kind of looking towards our crowd, and somewhere I'm like, "Where's Erica?" And they pointed her out, and I waved at her, told her to come down. We snuck her through security, and you know what? And I think the only people who truly know how much work goes into building a program and the ins and outs of just the everyday activities that go along with wrestling. It's more than the 2 hours that you spend in the room. The fact is, it's the work outside the room is probably more than the 2 hours you spend in the room. If it was just that, man, this job would honestly be easy, but there's other things you got to deal with in terms of grades and, weight descents and dealing with kids who, might be struggling in school and everything else. And the late night phone calls with some kids who, are struggling mentally or whatever it might be. The only person who truly sees that is your wife or your significant other or whatever it might be. And so she's been so supportive, from day one when I had 9 kids, and she saw the years where we won one duel, and barely won one duel, and to where we got now. And so she's seen all the work that's gone into that, the youth club and the open mats and the, getting guys to train freestyle and Greco, going out to Fargo. She's had a first row seat and has, always been so supportive and never questioned anything I've done in terms of what I'm doing in approach to wrestling. And I hope she knows that I appreciate her. I try and tell her that as much as I can. And that was just a special moment for us. I got to sit there and kind of bask in the moment a little bit because I don't think we probably do that enough when something like this happens. And I wanted to share that with her. So that was, because she was honestly as much a part of our success as I was and as our kids was. Because without her, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. She picks up the slack at home during the wrestling season. She's the one making the meals, and she's now with Lincoln Wrestling. She's in the bleachers every weekend watching the boys wrestle or taking Porter to his tournaments while we're away at a different tournament. So it's certainly a family affair at our house. So.
Love it. And last big question here, as we hit the 2 hour mark. Thanks for sticking around with us for 2 hours, Deke. Yeah.
Because we have to trim some of the fat off of this.
Oh, we're not doing any of that. I don't think there's a whole lot of fat to trim, to be honest. But the one thing Steve kind of touched on it earlier after the first round, and I thought one of my first thoughts after the marathon duel at Deke, and I've seen a lot of Aquinas wrestling. You guys have had some an incredible collection of talent, especially this decade. But I just thought, man, this group of kids is just different in a way. And without taking away from what those past groups have done, and you brought it up that, there's been a lot of heartaches over the years with the duels and whatnot. Was there anything that this team did differently, or was there anything that you feel you did differently, whether it be in regards to mentality or dual approach, that you think kind of helped this moment come together this year? Because you guys always had a really talented team, and this year there was talent and grit and great dual wrestling where after that first round, it almost felt like it was inevitable for you guys.
Yeah, looking back, I've been blessed with a lot of great older coaches that have kind of been mentors to me, and Todd English was a wrestler at Aquinas 10 years before I was, and was a longtime middle school coach, and his dad was my math teacher and was the first wrestling coach at Aquinas, and he would talk to me about, hey, he's like, look what Fenimore does so well. Look what Mineral Point, like when those guys lose, they're losing by a decision. And I think early on, maybe in my career, when we started getting good, I let my pride maybe get a little bit in the way where we would maybe try and game plan a win for a guy who maybe wasn't likely to win. Mm-hmm. And then that would backfire on us, because when you try and game plan for a win against a guy who might be better than you, like chances are you're going to put yourself in a position to give up more bonus. And so I think I finally started listening well, maybe to Todd and some of these other guys that were coaching, and really, I think doing a better job preaching like how to lose well and how losing well is important. And it's as important as getting bonus points sometimes is losing well, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you look at Peter White in that Cedar Grove Belgium duel. Not only does it save you team points, but it gets your guys going. And we're not afraid to talk about that with our guys now, where maybe before, because maybe was too proud, or maybe wasn't comfortable talking to my guys about losing. Like it's hard, I think, when you have to tell a kid like, hey, you're not maybe as good as this guy, so we need you to go out and we need you to slow the pace down. We need you to shoot him off the edge. We need you to stay active on bottom, and do like very specific things to try and make this match go the distance. And that's a hard conversation, but ones that we've been having. And once we started having them, it really wasn't that hard to have them. The kids get it, they're smart, and they bought into it. And I think that was a big reason, maybe the difference between some of our earlier teams that were real close to winning versus like this team. If we wrestled in a duel against like our 2022 team or 2020, like I don't know if I'm confident enough to put money on one of them. And they're all great teams in their own right. I just think that I was able to maybe swallow my pride a little bit and teach these guys how to lose well. And they to their credit, listened well, and they executed well and did a good job. So I would say that's maybe the big difference between those teams earlier on and them is I probably just didn't coach as well, to be honest with you.
And not to discount like the talent of the teams that you guys were going against too.
Oh, absolutely.
There were some great duels. And, I even think one thing I noticed too is you guys chasing pin. I remember I thought about it like the Team State weekend. There was a duel where Holman, it was like the 41-28 duel at Holman where like David and Calvin were like picking up tech falls, and I was like, oh, I think like Holman will gladly take the tech fall here. I was like surprised they like didn't go for pins more. And then like this year it was like you guys got it. Like, and I wanted to ask you this, and a lot of respect for those past teams, but like to hear about your growth and like for people to hear this and see like it is hard to win dual Team State. Like there is so many little things that you have to do correctly, and to hear about like you're a great coach, Deke, and for you to say like, hey, I've done a lot of growing these last 5 years, I think that's just awesome to hear. And I appreciate you having the humility to say that.
I'm constantly learning, and I'm constantly stealing stuff from other teams. Dave Malachek I consider him a friend and a mentor of mine as well. Like, I'm constantly picking his brain. So, and sometimes you pick up tidbits just from watching guys, and sometimes you do it from talking to them. And I try and be a student of the sport, and I think with age you get a little bit of wisdom, and you realize you probably know less than you think you know. So, and I feel like hopefully I've hit that point at least now. So, and then that way you just kind of keep having a growth mindset.
What's the theory that we always talk about, Steve?
I don't know if it's a theory. A famous person, I don't know who it was, but they said the more I know, the more I learn, the more I wait, how's it go? The more I learn, gosh, dang it. The more I learn, I realize I really don't know much.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is what there it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the more you know about something, the more you realize you don't know about that.
Yeah, boy, am I just not very smart in this area. So.
All right. Penultimate question, Deke. That's second to last one. Outlook for next year now.
Yeah, so we lose 5 seniors, 4 starters off, and 4 like really good seniors. So you talk about Tyson Martin, Roger Flegge, Marcus Clark, Waylon Hargrove. So like, you can't really replace guys like that. Like there's not anybody that's going to step in and fill Tymar's shoes. But we got Chase Shams waiting in the wings, and he's going to be really, really good for us. And I think he, knock on wood, barring injury, he's going to be a high podium guy for us. And so I feel really good about that. We've got some nice freshmen coming in with this 8th grade, some good athletes. Our guys are already back on the mat. The Tyler Paulsons, Martez, the Nicolay boys. Lincoln's wrestling already. They're doing their freestyle and Greco stuff up at Law and at AWA. And so they're not resting on their laurels. And, I'm having these exit meetings, and I've got a lot of guys that are wanting to do off-season stuff, which is great. So I don't necessarily think we're going anywhere anytime soon, but it's still always a challenge, right? Like you still have this challenge in front of you, and so it's not like a professional team, like an NFL team that can kind of stay mostly intact from year to year. Every year in high school, you graduate good kids when you're in a good program, and you've got to figure out a way to continue to wrestle at and compete at a high level, even with the loss of those guys. And you do that by constantly challenging yourself, constantly trying to get better, and just making small adjustments from year to year, because every team is a little bit different as well.
Okay, follow up to that question. Sorry, because you gave a really good answer on it. But aside from the team state title, what are you going to remember about this team 20 years from now? And more into that, what are you going to remember about this senior class down the road?
Goofy. These guys are so goofy. Like the things they talk about, and like the bus rides, the things.
And Tyson Martin's Instagram name.
Yeah, and like they sing, they're singers. They'll like be like, when I take their phones away on the bus, all of a sudden the back of the bus is breaking out into a T-Swift song at the top of their lungs. And they're really funny. All these guys got great senses of humor. Some of them are dry, some of them are more over the top. But they all loved each other, but just the way I think that just the way that they got along, and the bus rides, I'll remember. And like during our exit meetings, one of my questions is, what was your best memory from this year or for your seniors, your career? Not one of them yet has said winning team state. So I thought that was very telling. And like, this is really more about the memories you create versus winning the titles. Obviously we work as hard as we do to try and win the titles, but ultimately as a coach, I think when you see questions answered like that, it gives you some perspective, like, hey, the team camps and the bus rides and the overnights, like those are the things that the guys remember.
The what did you say? The 80-foot slip and slide.
80-foot slip and slide. The paintballing was a huge hit because they got to. So Jake Fitzpatrick and I were one team against 28 of our guys. We were at the top of a hill, and we didn't stand a chance. But I had 5 of my wrestlers this year tell me that paintballing was their favorite part. Beating Coach Stanek in paintballing was their favorite part. So.
That's amazing. And this one, great group, and the senior class. It's not just the talent, but the type of guys they were. That's, they're going to leave their legacy with the culture. That's for sure.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they hold themselves to a high standard of conduct, both on and off the mat. These guys are very deep in their faith. These seniors, they have all done these religious retreats. A lot of them have led the religious retreats. And then how they practice. Like when you practice hard and you compete hard in the practice room, it rubs off on those young guys. Those young guys then understand the standard, and then you just hope and pray that those young guys continue to hold that standard moving forward. And it's hard not to, because they understand what the standard is, and they know that if they don't do it, then they're not going to pass that on to the next guys.
Now the real last question. Any advice, Deke, for younger coaches, or in another way to spin it, if you had to give advice to day one of Deke Stanek, what would you tell them?
Well, and I think you've kind of already answered this, but I'm excited to hear this.
Be patient. Like if you're going to do it and if you're going to do it right, it takes time. And it's not going to be one monumental thing. It's going to take a lot of little things and surrounding yourself with really good people and really good support to get things off the ground. Like I can't do everything in our program to make us successful. Like I've got really good guys running our K-2 program. I've got a really good group running our 3rd through 5th program. The most important coaches in your program, in my opinion, should be your middle school coaches. And I've got some great middle school coaches. When you do that and you can kind of take things off of your plate and put them off to people that you trust, know that still it's going to take time, but as long as you are always moving in a positive direction, get those numbers up first, the quality will follow. You just got to stick with it. Like this is 18 years in the making, it wasn't done overnight. And, I've certainly been blessed with some good kids and some good teams, but it took us 18 years to get here. And I'm certainly glad I saw it through. I mean, I tell you what, there were some times earlier in those years, I'm like, what am I still doing? This is crazy, but I'm glad I stuck it out. And I've been very blessed to have been associated with some outstanding young men and now women that are in our program that, I've been so blessed to have my boys get to hang out with like the David Molines and the Tate Fleggies and the Joe Pinkies and the Zach and Noah DeGroots. And I could say 100 different names and I would still be leaving guys out. So, but I've been blessed. If my sons turn out to be like those young men that I just listed, I'll be a very proud father.
We got to give you an obligatory shout out. I know we mentioned him once already, to the OG glue guy, Trevor Paulson.
Yeah, wrestling at Loris now. He's doing really good. Going into engineering.
He epitomized good dual wrestling right there. Yeah.
Yeah. He would listen to us. We'd game plan, and he would stick to that game plan to a T. He would not deviate. It was awesome. He was a great team guy, great glue guy, great kid. So,
well, Deke, I want to thank you. Not just for all you do for the kids, and thank you for the time for coming on. But you are. I was happy for you guys. I know there's the Holman Aquinas rivalry, but you are a good dude, and you raised such a great, nice, young group of kids. Like, I think I've never had a negative interaction with an Aquinas wrestler or any Aquinas coach, and I was happy for the team, but I was very happy for you as a person when you guys ended up winning the title, and that was I'm glad we got. I think that's why I went over 2 hours, because I think selfishly I wanted to indulge in this moment a little bit.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate what you guys do for wrestling in Wisconsin. You guys give the whole state great coverage, and you get good storylines out there and make it interesting and do a good job of covering. And we get to watch a lot more wrestling, through you guys that we wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Thank you, Deke. Appreciate you, brother. Steve-O, you got anything?
No, I appreciate it. It was great. I was just your openness to share what you shared was fantastic. If I was a young coach, I'd be listening to it and I'd be taking to heart and implementing it in my program. So thanks for giving that blueprint out there, and thanks for giving us 2 hours of your night. And let us know if your wife is in the finals, by the way, in her volleyball championship.
She's not home yet, so she made the finals. So otherwise, she would have been home already. So her and Cable Malachek are probably in the finals.
Well, Malachek's got to be in the front row, right?
Yeah, you only watch if she makes the finals. So now I guess you have to go watch.
Yeah, Malachek's probably doing his fire it up.
Oh,
so yeah.
Well, fellas, it was a fun one, and I don't know what we're doing next because we fly by the seat of our pants here. But Steve and I will probably talk about that at the conclusion of this one. But thank you once again for coming on, Deke. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And until next time, we will catch you on the flip side.